When he says it, he means it, and you don't get to bend it and twist it to what you want. To reach the lost Israelites, the message has to go to everybody, and then the whomsoever wills will come. The ones who he draws will come. By the way, knowledge meaning what? Having a relationship with the truth. Oh, you learned, and you got tons of information, but have you come into a relationship with truth?
We've been walking in a straight line. When will it end? I know I've seen, but I've learned my lesson. So please forgive us. Now I ask you to hear my prayer tonight. To the land of freedom, give me salvation. We've been walking for almost 40 years, and now I'm shedding tears because I know I've sinned, but I'm asking, will you take us, take me to the land of freedom? Now you take us to your promised land. It fills you with hopes and dreams instead of beating day and night. Forgive us. Now I ask you to hear my prayer tonight. Take me to the land of freedom. Give me salvation. We've been walking for almost 40 years, and now I'm shedding tears because I know I've sinned, but I'm asking, will you take us, take me to the land of freedom? You answered 1,000,000 prayers, oh yeah. You took us from captivity and freed us. You answered 1,000,000 prayers, oh yeah. You took us from captivity and freed us. You took me to the land of freedom. You gave me salvation. We have walked for almost 40 years, and now I'm shedding tears because now we're here, so I'm praising. Now you took us, took me to the land of freedom. To the land of freedom.
And I had a woman call me who was somewhat part of our ministry about 18 years ago. And we're talking about this stuff because she was all freaked out about relatives and people that were getting in the hospital and getting older and going to die and everything. And I told her it doesn't work that way, and she didn't want to listen. She was very Christian, even though she was Messianic. And she said to me, because she was getting frustrated, she said, do you mean to tell me that all these church fathers and all these people and all these pastors for all these years are wrong and you're right? And I said, yes. And she said, the ego, the pride. I said, no, they're just wrong. Longevity and history and bloodline, so to speak, doesn't make them right. Matter of fact, follow the bloodline back. You end up in Mother Church. It's part of why they're wrong, because that's what they're teaching you. But you have to be willing to stand up and say that, yes, I think they're wrong. My wife remembers that conversation that I had. And this lady then tried to split the congregation and all kinds of stuff because actually she first started out doing what you really shouldn't do, is that the teaching would start, she'd leave the room, go into the kitchen where the oneg was going to be prepared for later, and then she wouldn't come out until the Q&A like this, and then she'd start throwing bombs out, and I actually stopped her one week and said, you do not have the right to ask questions because you didn't sit here and listen. I said, what kind of nerve do you have that you think it's appropriate to walk out, and don't think I don't see it. I'm standing here and I see what you do. And you walk out, won't listen, but come in and I think you're going to come in here and start poking at what I just said. Show some respect, sit in and listen, and then make your comments. Oh, Rabbi, that was very mean of you. No, it was very rude of her and disrespectful to everybody else sitting there. Somebody's got to call it out. That's the kind of leader you're looking for. Aren't you tired of the leaders that are wishy-washy, beating around the bush and won't say it like it is? But then when I do, and I finally, you love it when it's somebody else's thing, but when I pop your little bubble, I'm swinging that sword around pretty good. Eventually I'm going to hit your bubble. I've got a very wide-angled shotgun, lots of pellets going everywhere. I'm going to hit you. And you love it when it's hitting everybody else. Then it hits you, you don't like it. Then I'm no longer whatever impressive thing you might say about me. Now I'm like the worst, dumb, whatever, and you want to go tell everybody what a false thing I am. Because I was only impressive to you while I was popping everybody else's stuff. How are you going to react when it's your toes that are getting whacked? Call it Messianic whack-a-mole. I think we put that in one of the... We put that as one of the in focuses. I think we have that in focus called whack-a-mole. You keep moving those feet, don't worry, I'll hit them. Because it's not me. See, if it was me, yes, you can move your feet and I can miss. Because I don't know what the thing is to hit. He does. And he'll have me say something at some point that you need, because maybe I said something that you needed, but now something that you needed the next time. He will hit your toes, and he'll use someone teaching to do it. Don't use that as a measure of whether or not you like the teacher. By the way, I don't care if you like the teacher. I care if you are allowing the teacher to be a tool for him to tell you what you needed to hear, not what you wanted to hear. Okay? There's times when I've said things or told my wife I was going to teach something. She's like, but if you teach that, people will leave. And I said, that's not my problem. I don't care how many people are in the room. I just stand up and get out of the way and let him blast. Okay? You can clap, that's fine. Because that clapping is not for me. That's for you appreciating that I'm getting out of the way, letting him blast. I'll take care. Well, actually, you know what? I was about to take credit for the wise guy, but I think he's a wise guy too. You read some of the stuff he says, he's a wise guy. Hey, Pharaoh, you worship frogs? Here's some frogs. He's a wise guy. We'll give you some frogs. I'm sorry if you are not ready for some of this in terms of being able to handle the directness of it. Find somebody else. I don't know what else to tell you. This is the tool I am. I'm a hammer or whatever. You need a screwdriver or you need some other thing, go find it somewhere else. Some of you, after I'm teaching, you're going to the bar and you need a screwdriver. Man, that teaching was rough. I'll take a screwdriver, please. But then you end up getting hammered anyway. Oh, I just could not resist. No. I could not resist. So take the hammer from the podium. It doesn't leave you with a hangover. Okay? Actually, it'll clear out all the cobwebs, is what it's meant to do.
He made the earth and the universe. He made the sun shining brightly. He made the animals in harmony. He made you and me, and we'll sing. Who sits on the throne? You worship him in your home. Yahweh, Yahweh, who's enthroned on high. El Shaddai, he is the King. He is the If he made everything, why not praise him for that? He is very merciful. His own son died for us and sing. Who sits on the throne? You worship him in your home. Yahweh, Yahweh, who's enthroned on high. El Shaddai, he is the King. He is the King. Oh yeah. He is who he is. He is the bread of life. He made everything, everything. And now I'll sing a new song, a new song. Who sits on the throne? You worship him in your home. Yahweh, Yahweh, who's enthroned on high. El Shaddai, he is the King. He is the who sits on the throne. You worship him in your home. Yahweh, Yahweh, who's enthroned on high. El Shaddai, he is the King. He is Yahweh, sits on the throne. Yahweh is the King.
Okay, we on? Yes, no? All right, if you'll all rise, we'll start with the sounding of the shofar. Amen. Amen. I got to keep you guys guessing to see if you think I'm going to do a long one or a short one at the end there. That was kind of an in-between. All right, let's go ahead and sing praises to our King.
Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Aleinu shalom alechem, Aleinu shalom alechem, Aleinu shalom alechem, Aleinu shalom, shalom, shalom alechem, Aleinu shalom alechem, Aleinu shalom alechem, Aleinu shalom alechem, Aleinu shalom, shalom, shalom alechem, shalom Yerushalayim, shalom Yerushalayim, shalom Yerushalayim, shalom Yerushalayim, shalom, Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Jerusalem shall live in peace. Shalom, 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 Yerushalayim. Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom. Yah is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? He is my strength. Yahweh Ori, Le Yeshuati Mini Ephraim, Ugibori. When the wicked come to me, they will stumble and fall. Though it not be surrounded, my heart will not fail. Yah is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? He is my strength. Yahweh Ori, Le Yeshuati Mini Ephraim, Ugibori. One thing that I am, and that I see, that I've been dwelling your house all the days of my life, to inquire at your temple, to gaze at your beauty in the Mishkan of praise.
Come, let us praise the Lord and sing him a new song. Come, let us sing his praise together with the saints, with all the righteous ones. Let Israel rejoice in her Creator. Let the children of Eretz Zion be glad in their King. Let them praise his name with dancing, making music with the tambourine and harp. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will crown the humble with salvation. Let the saints rejoice in this order. Sing and dance unto the Lord. Come, let us praise the Lord and sing him a new song. Come, let us sing his praise together with the saints, with all the righteous ones. Let Israel rejoice in her Creator. Let the children of Eretz Zion be glad in their King. Let them praise his name with dancing, making music with the tambourine and harp. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will crown the humble with salvation. Let the saints rejoice in this order. Sing and dance unto the Lord. Let them praise his name with dancing, making music with the tambourine and harp. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will crown the humble with salvation. Let the saints rejoice in this order. Sing and dance unto the Lord. Sing and dance unto the Lord. Sing and dance unto the Lord.
Arise and shine. Arise and shine. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. And the nations shall come unto thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. Lift up thine eyes round about and see, they gather themselves all together. So arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. And the sons of those who afflicted thee, and all who have despised you will bow down. Then they shall call you the city of the Lord, Zion of the Holy One of Israel. So arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. So arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. Oh, arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee.
Praise you, Lord, you're the rock of my salvation. You I praise from shore to shore in all your creation. Let it ring from mountain tops, let my voice proclaim the tender mercies of my Lord. Yeshua is his name. Messiah of Israel is he, restorer of our nation. The hope of David now we see, bringing us salvation. Root of Jesse, Lion of Judah, Judge of Israel. Now we praise you for your joy and love that never fails. Jesse, Lion of Judah, Judge of Israel. How I praise you, Lord, you're the rock of my salvation. You I praise from shore to shore in all your creation. Let it ring from mountain tops, let my voice proclaim tender mercies of my Lord. Yeshua is his name. Yeshua is his name.
Amen. Amen. Excellent. Praise Yah. Father, we come before you and we're just so blessed to have this time that you instituted from the beginning of creation, a time that you knew we would need to separate ourselves from the world and from all things, and to be able to have that rest, that restoration, that reviving that comes from spending time with each other and with you. And that, Father, that we could put aside all the cares of the world and all the concerns that we might have to be able to completely focus our attention on you. So, Father, we thank you. We praise you. We sing, we dance, we make a joyful noise, and we just want to express from the abundance of our heart how much we love you and appreciate you. And so, Father, now we ask that you would be with us, guiding and leading all things, so that all things would be to your glory and your honor. So, Father, we thank you, praise you, giving you all glory and honor. In the name above all names, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. 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 Okay. Awesome job again by the praise team. All right. You may all be seated. And thank you for waiting. Okay. Really just a blessing to watch the team come together as a team. I mean, we only get to practice once a week, which is, just amazing that we have that little amount of time. But the way they've come together and the creativity, you notice that little difference in that rejoice this time was just a little bit different, version of that. They just creatively started just kind of letting the Ruach lead them into something. And that's what we came up with on Wednesday, and it was great. So really enjoyed that. And so just really terrific. Okay, so this is the time here at Beth Shalom and MTOI where we take up the praise and the prayers of the congregation. And so if you've got a prayer or praise here locally, if you raise your hand, Nate will come around with the mic. If you're on live stream, Rob Wyatt and Kirk Meyer are watching the live stream. Okay, now bear in mind that we're not going to, especially with the live stream, we may bunch together some of the ones that are very similar. Okay, but the urgent ones, hopefully we'll get them done. If you're here locally, let's try to keep the backstories down to a minimum. We do have over 100 of you here, and so we want to just go ahead and make sure we're covering all the urgent things. Also, for those of you that may be wondering and confused, we are trying to develop a brand new website. In doing so, we do have a photographer here taking pictures for the new website. So in case you're wondering, what's going on with the guy taking pictures, okay? And so he's here to do that for the new website, so we can get some good live shots and positional shots for that. So I'm going to be announcing when that's ready. It's going to be a little while with the site's in development, and we'll let you know when it's ready. Okay, so we're going to begin with, where's the mic? Okay, Jonathan?
Yeah. I want to give praise and thanks to Abba for all his many blessings. I've been coming to the feast, and every time I come, David Hayes and his family have opened up their doors to give me a place to stay, just so I can come and worship and praise with this mishpachah. And he takes time out of his busy schedule, and him and Stacia Hayes and their family, so hospitable. I just want to give praise to them. And I wouldn't even be able to give praise to Abba for them. I wouldn't be able to even come out here if it wasn't for Rob and Tamara Wyatt and their family, who are coming all the way out from Huntsville, Alabama. So I'm just giving praise and thanks to Abba for this mishpachah and all that they've done for me in being able to come and worship and praise.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. And that is what we call mishpachah, or family, like you said. So just to translate that for people, mishpachah is the Hebrew for family, and that's what family does. And so I'm so glad that that's worked out, that we have people that are willing and able to, help people to get here. Okay, Sarah Beth?
I wanted to give praise. I had my review this week. The review was all praise. Abba made sure I had a few things along the way to show me where I need to go next, so I didn't get too big ahead. But just a key thing that my supervisor said during the review was that my team was not too happy when he told them they were getting me, but there were some restrictions with getting me. They were not too happy about those restrictions. He said, hold it, it'll be okay. it'll be worth it. And he said that the team sees that he was right.
All right, amen. Awesome. Listen, I just want to emphasize something that she said that maybe you picked up, maybe you didn't, which is, I've been telling you all for a long time, if you can go to the place of employment where you are and you be that really good and faithful servant to that company and do what they need, but also maintain integrity to your walk, it will bring blessing. They will see, even though there's restrictions and concessions that sometimes get made and people might get all bent into a little bit of a twist about it, they'll ultimately see that having you there is worth it. And that's when the company, any good company is going to recognize that finding good people is harder than finding people that'll work on the days you want. And so you can make adjustments maybe for the Sabbath for somebody if they're that good. You need to be that good. And then your employer should bend over back. I learned this very early on in working. I watched people ahead of me and how they got away with certain things, and they were able to do stuff or not do things that other people had to do because they were top producers. They were the quality employee. And so when I asked, I said, how come so-and-so doesn't end up having to do these menial, annoying tasks that the rest of us have to do? Well, so-and-so is a top producer. They get the job done. They're valued. So if I do that, I get the same treatment. I get it. I learned. Okay, so Sarah Beth's seeing that now because she heard me teach this over and over for the last 2 years. Which, by the way, that you've been here now 2 years. Awesome. Okay. All right, who's next? Okay, Billie Jean?
I know I'm always asking prayer for my son John, but he's really in a bad position right now. I think Yahweh's trying to teach him something, but the tree fell on his mobile home. He had to try to find another place to live. He found another place to live, and before he could get moved in, he broke his leg. And now he's not able to work. So if he can't work, he can't pay his rent. So he's just in desperate need of prayer right now. And also, my husband's not doing very well, so remember him in prayer. Richard?
Amen. Okay. I don't want to say something every time someone says something, but sometimes I feel like it's good to learn something here. Hopefully we all recognize that one of the reasons why her son is in the straits that he's in is because he is not in a community and he doesn't have covering. Because in a community, he would have no worries and no fears because the community could help take care of him if he broke his leg and couldn't work and help with those things. This is the value of being in covenantal community. He would also have not gotten into some of the trouble he got in if he'd been under a covering and had mentorship and discipleship and guidance. So don't just think about the values of it, but realize all of the pain you could avoid if you come into a relationship in a right place with right people, because then you have that safety net for all those issues and the instruction that might keep you out of some of the trouble. Okay? And so it's great that we can pray for somebody that's in those kind of troubles. Really what we pray is that his eyes are open and he gets in community. And then there would be real solutions. Okay? Amen. Okay, who's next?
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, Candace, Shabbat Shalom.
Since I got mikvah last Sunday, and it was quite a experience. But I mean, all the people that worked to get me into the water, it was just phenomenal and wonderful. And I'm really grateful I got to do that. And I have found myself wanting more of Yahweh since then. It just does something to you when you get mikvah'd.
Amen.
I just wish I would have done it sooner. But I was listening, Rabbi, to some teachings of yours this week. And yesterday while I was preparing for Shabbat, I was listening to the series, What is Worship? Now, when I was in the United Pentecostal Church, worship was raising your hands, screaming and yelling, running around the pews, babbling and who knows what, and that was considered worship. And we would go away from there thinking, oh, that was a great worship. We had wonderful worship service tonight. And not a one of us was really changed inside. But I learned that that is not worship. Worship is It's the total giving of yourself to Yahweh, your total control over to Him. And knowing and trusting Him that He has your back, that He's not going to let you sink.
Amen.
It's just giving total control to Him and acknowledging that He is everything in my life and that I cannot live or breathe or walk or talk without Him. So I'm glad I listened to it. I'll probably listen to it a few more times because I know I missed stuff while I was in the kitchen working. But it was an awesome teaching, and I'm grateful that I got mikvah last week.
Amen. Amen. That, for those of you that have not listened to it or maybe only listened to it once, that's a teaching I don't get to mention often enough, but that's a really important teaching to reset and redefine for you what worship is according to the Scripture. What the Word actually says about worship as opposed to what we've always been taught, which is why I talk about the praise team and not the worship team. Because they're leading us in praise. Worship's a whole different idea, okay? Now, praise can be a part of worship, but it's not worship in itself. And we have to understand, that's why we had the teaching, and I appreciate that you reminded me that that's an important one that maybe we need to kind of mention more often. All right, Dawn?
Praise that Kirsten, Frank, and Alani made it to El Paso and got their apartment kind of set up. So thank you for keeping them in prayer. Also, I wanted to give praise to Abba for MTOI and for Beth Shalom, and especially for you, Rabbi. Us being under your tutelage or covering, Nate took those Excel words and excelled in his work, and he got an award. Surprisingly, he surprised him yesterday that he got, was it Nurse of the Quarter? And so he made our refrigerator, so it's quite an honor. Thank you.
I haven't even made the refrigerator. That's great. I have to talk to the Rebbitzin about that. You made the refrigerator. That's that's a big deal. All right, Deirdre.
Hi, family. I am giving Abba some big praises. First of all, for the manager of the apartment complex where I am now living with my family. I have never had a manager be willing to move mountains to get us what we need before now. Our refrigerator broke down actually last Sabbath night. And the very next Monday, the maintenance man came by and said, "You're going to get a new fridge tomorrow." And the company did not follow through, and my manager just fought and stayed on the phone with them until they agreed to bring us what we needed. And I have never had anyone in management do that for our family, and I'm just really grateful for that. Abba put us where we needed to be, where we'd be taken care of.
Amen.
And on the lines of being taken care of, my wonderful husband has decided that now, since there is an opportunity, he is going to pursue becoming a firefighter. And it's something that he told me has been on his mind and his heart, but there was never an opportunity. We moved to Cleveland, there's an opening. So if that's not Abba, I don't know what that is. So let's hope that, hopefully, we'll get there, and he'll be able to get where he needs to be, right? I'm talking to Rabbi, right? Oh, good, she says. Oh, good, Mom, we need to do that more often.
Yep. Thank you, Alice. All right, Mike's coming around this way. Okay, Michelle?
I'd like to give praise that my whole bathroom didn't just explode. Being a homeowner is a little bit different. You can't just call somebody and just say, hey. But I was really kind of blessed because my ex-husband, he was there. I thought that I made the mistake. I left my toilet running for like 3 months, and I was wondering why I was having this excessive thing going on. And I invited my neighbor, which was I'm not going to say it was a mistake, but we replaced all my brass and copper with PVC couplings instead of brass, and it exploded, and then he ran away. And it really kind of upset me because I had to call my ex-husband and go, what do I do? And I felt like, anyway, he was like saying, oh, he's so but he's old anyway, so my neighbor. And so he's like, oh, he's so like not has Messiah. And then when this happened, he like ran away, and it was his fault because I didn't even need that work done at all. It was my toilet the whole time because they ran the little report, and the flags only showed that it was periodic, which means it was something the meter was, Anyway, so I have my whole bathroom is shut down, and the water in my house. And it's interesting that you said that we're under a covering, but I have to call my neighbor, who I don't really, I have esteemed the name of the Messiah to him like 5 billion times. I don't think it totally works, like if they really don't accept the task at hand. I mean, I love my neighbor, but he's just an old man, let's just be honest. He's not a great plumber.
Well, you should have called us.
I had that thought, and I thought, why would I call you? What does that have to do with my covering? And then you mentioned it, and I thought, that's kind of weird because I hear things sometimes, and I'm just driving along, and I think to myself, do I really want to do that? And so we can talk about it later.
Yep. Okay.
And see what that all means.
Yep.
I know at Widow's Harvest, because they consider, since my husband was a non-believer and he departed, that he was dead, and they showed up at my door. I'm like, we want to help you with your house. Is that what you mean, like a Widow's Harvest kind of show up at my door covering to help me with my plumbing?
You'll talk to me afterwards. We'll talk about it.
Do you even know anything about shower plumbing?
But we have lots of plumbers, though, in our congregation, including one sitting about 8 seats from you.
Really?
Okay.
Oh, you? Hi.
Okay. So, yeah, we can handle plumbing.
All right. Well, I already have all the parts. I just need someone who knows exactly what they're doing to show
we got
up.
about 5 people here at least that can
Right.
do that. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay. Look, this whole idea of covering is a little bit confusing and challenging for some people because there's no place that you would be that would actually offer this to you in the way that we do. Okay? And so many of you just don't, for whatever reason, feel comfortable to take full, I don't want to say advantage, but to avail yourself of what's available. Okay? And so when things come up and you're not covered, you're not with a husband, you don't have your father around, so that's the type of thing you could call the leadership if you are under that leadership and you have a relationship of covering, and the leadership can help give you counsel or help you with the situation specifically. And then you wouldn't be running the risk of just having a random person like a neighbor come in who doesn't know what they're doing and wreck your plumbing. It's, now it could have been the person was great at it and fixed it, but just it's a random shot. But, just knowing that it's available and understanding it. But it takes a while to experience it to kind of understand it, okay? And so remember, this is something that is new to a lot of people. When it's new, it takes a while to really understand it and develop that understanding and then walk in it, okay? Okay, Michelle?
It's called Mishpachah and Community.
That's right. It's called Mishpachah and Community, which we really have not had a lot of experience with, so we don't understand it.
Good morning. I wanted to give praise. I woke up this morning, and Manny and I were kind of talking about it, and we were just thinking, like, just how much we love you and how awesome you are. And we know it's the Creator, that has brought you into our life, that has anointed you, that, opened, Manny to see this. And I was just thinking that, 2 years tomorrow, we loaded up our car and drove from California all the way out here and to a land we'd never been, to people we didn't know, to a house we bought practically unseen. And it was just in full emunah, full faith that we knew we were supposed to be here. And I'm just so grateful, and I just give so much praise that he just, the Father just opened those doors. We stepped through them, and it's far exceeded anything we ever could have imagined. And we're just so happy to be here.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. And look, I get kicked a lot. And so don't have any fear that these kind of things are just going to puff me up and have me hard to walk through doorways or something. And so it kind of brings a nice little balance. It's nice to hear good, encouraging words and appreciation like that. So I appreciate it a lot, okay? And so Manny knows, because he's handling the media, and he knows that I get plenty of the other side of that, okay? So I do appreciate those. Because I know some of you are thinking, well, I don't want to puff him up and everything. Well, believe me, I'm getting kicked enough that I can certainly use some encouragement and hearing somebody say, hey, we appreciate what you're doing. So I thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, who else? Okay, Dale?
I just want to praise Abba because, as all of you now know, I'm a plumber. I had 15 years experience in Chicago before we moved up here. And I got a new job 3 weeks ago as a plumber again here. And actually, it's in Ottawa, but we're all over the place. But it's going really well. I'm getting paid well. The bosses there really, they're Baptist, but they're really nice about giving me Shabbat. They're okay with the feasts and everything. So I just want to praise Abba for all the blessings.
All right, Tamara.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I listened to Michelle's story. What she did not mention is that tomorrow is her birthday, and so they loaded up on her birthday and moved here. And then Manny has a birthday on Tuesday, so I just wanted to praise Abba for my wonderful family, Mishpachah, because these two have, besides, I'm so grateful for you and Rebitz and Julie. And then we have these two right here who really model and set the bar high when it comes to friendship and hospitality. If you were telling us that that is what, the scripture tells us that we should be like Abraham and hospitality should be a major part of our lives, Manny and Michelle are the perfect example of that. So I just want to praise Abba for them.
Yeah, I would say that we have a couple of families here and they're one of them, that if you have a need or something that needs to be fixed, they will make every effort to provide the need or fix the thing that needs to be fixed. More often than not, I'll show up here at the building and see Manny crawled up in the hood of a car because one of the members has a car problem, or David Hayes, and those two families for sure, the Hayeses and the Huertas and the others as well. So if I'm leaving you out, please don't get upset. But I'm just thinking about what I see here at the congregation, where they'll open their doors to people that need it. They'll provide and fix anything that's broken, or at least find someone that can do it. And so it's great to see that people are seeing that, loving the neighbor as yourself, that family, that community that we're building here. And it's not just about showing up once a week on Shabbat and just having a service. And so, because they're a great example of they came from California, as Michelle said, and they just decided to uproot, take everything and move, and just, and now it's been almost, 2 years, and so I can't believe it's only 2 years. It feels like you've been here a lot longer. So that's great. It's awesome. That's how well we've acclimated. When you know that you feel like you've been with people a lot longer, you know that you got a real good relationship because it just feels so comfortable and natural, and that's awesome. So fantastic stuff. All right, who's next? Okay, Nate.
Just wanted to pray for the Lane family, who's not here this week. They're up in New York. Hi, Lanes. Miss you guys. Also wanted to recognize my beautiful wife, who's having a birthday on the 22nd, between Manny and Michelle there.
Okay, so we got a whole bunch of birthdays next week.
And a little bit on the backstory with the employee of the quarter. I got a call. I'm working on one side of the hospital, and I get a call. Nate, where are you at? And I'm like, I'm over on the general side. Can you come over to the acute side right now? And I'm like, oh, sounds like I'm in trouble. So I go over there, and my boss and her boss are there at that side, and they had everybody come over to that side, and I was not expecting this at all, and it's because of your counsel that I should take a permanent job, because I've been working as a traveler. You don't really get to know people. You move on, you do your thing. And I work hard. I do work no matter where I go, because I try to reflect who I believe in, my Creator, Yeshua.
Right.
And it was really touching that I never thought that they would even recognize that. So it was an opportunity that, my boss just really thanked me in front of everybody, and everybody thanked me. And so I thank you, Rabbi, and Manny and Michelle, and everybody on the team that you have been slowly building here to help with the Mishpacha. It's been a real blessing. We have been here a total of a year now as we picked up from New York, and we've been following for 2, but it's been a funny journey, but awesome. And I want to give praise for that journey over the last couple of years, so thank you.
Amen. Amen. I don't know. I was going to say something. I'm not sure, but I guess I'll say it anyway, which is, don't take this in a minimal way. Nate and I had a fairly little bit of a struggle back and forth when he was first trying to figure out how to make it work to come down here. And he'd been doing travel nursing, which, gives a lot more flexibility, pays a little bit more, but it's not as consistent, and it can be erratic and that kind of thing. And I in counseling him, had said to him, it's time to take the permanent position, at least to get this certain. There was lots of reasons anyway, and he really didn't want to, but he trusted and did it. And look at all the fruit. He started with a night shift. He didn't want night shift. Now he's on days. Now he's employee of the quarter type of thing. It's all not because of what anything I did. It's because he decided to trust that Abba was working through me to counsel him and to trust it and do it. And I want you to always keep hearing those things when people do that. Because some of you don't like what I say or don't want to agree with it or whatever it is. He didn't. He did not want to take this permanent job that way. That was not what he wanted, okay? And you can ask him, because I'm not exaggerating it, but he did it anyway, okay? And that's what I think brings the fruit, is that he put his trust in the system, in the process. Okay, so I just want to keep reminding you anytime those things pop up, because a lot of you still are struggling to come under any kind of authority and to have anybody give you advice or counsel. There's a lot of you that need to come and talk to me that won't and haven't, but should. And if you're struggling, you need to talk to somebody like Nate, because Nate, I can promise you, when I first met him, was just where you are or worse. He had no interest in any kind of leadership, okay? So it's just important to understand that blessing will come by the Father's system, not because I'm such a genius, okay, but because the system works, the process works. Amen? Amen. Same thing when I was talking to Dale and we said, go get a plumbing job, okay, because he was doing other things and not trying to really get back into plumbing. And almost within days of when I said that to him, he ended up in a plumbing job, one day, okay? Because we were counseling about his situation. I said, well, what else do you do? He said, well, I could do plumbing. I said, well, go do that. Boom, next day he had a job. Okay? It's the system, it's the process. Okay, who's next? The live stream? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, from Lev Mashiach, urgent prayer request for Mike and Pam Decker's 3-year-old granddaughter, Araya, who was admitted to the hospital this morning. Arthur and Linda Nakanechi.
Well said.
Huge praise. Linda and I will be celebrating our 44th wedding anniversary next week. Thank the Father for 44 wonderful years together.
And I can tell you from my own experience, there are very few people that I can say are even close to as awesome as those two. Okay, those are two awesome people, and they're up there, just more or less by themselves in Manitoba with just a couple of people that they kind of interact with. But they've been a part of this longer than any of you, almost. I mean, as far as, especially any of you on live stream, because we've been doing this together with them for almost 7 years or so, and love Linda, love Arthur, awesome people, and Mazel Tov on your anniversary.
From Crystal Trueheart Janice, please keep our daughter, who has been through 2 emergency gallbladder-related surgical procedures in the last week. From Sharon Masters, says Shabbat Shalom from Melbourne, Florida, where I'm watching with my son from the hospital where he is recovering from successful back surgery. 1 more surgery to go. Anna Zimmerman, prayer for myself and students I'm with in California. We have a lot of work to do for a couple camps we're hosting. We're all battling sickness and need to get better before the upcoming workload. Randolph Sherrard, my wife Sherry Sherrard needs urgent prayer. In the 33 years at the same job, she's never called off. She's now on FMLA, the Medical Leave Act, for a fractured femur, also that she can get her money from disability insurance. Aaron Sullivan, prayer for Kate's ear. She began having a lot of pain in it late this morning, and it seems to be getting worse. And our hearing for visitation changes is this Wednesday and could affect our move. Charles Davis, prayer for my wife Laura. She has been having pain in her kidneys. Joshua Funk, huge praise report. I was able to come home yesterday. My sister Serena needs prayer. She is real bad poison ivy. Mary Alice, please pray for my son-in-law's father, Edward. He is diagnosed with stomach cancer. From Cheryl T., praise that my husband's surgery went well, and prayers for a good recovery and an unspoken. Catherine Dweem, please pray for my daughter Danielle, who's 25, who is 28 weeks pregnant and is being admitted in a hospital for the duration of her pregnancy with twins. She has preeclampsia. Mike McGuffin, prayer request. My son-in-law Scott is finally having the surgery on his left side of his neck to remove tumors next Tuesday. It's a very risky surgery. From Brian Adams, praise my wife's health is improving and my work will be funded and sending me to additional schooling. From Don, 3-day-old baby Richard Donlin in NICU with a collapsed lung, urgent prayers. They are in the hospital. They're usually on live stream. That's it. Many unspoken and many on basically desiring to move.
Amen. Amen. All right, let me add a couple of things real quick. Oh, Shira's got her hand up. You want to? No, I wasn't. I didn't know about it, so go ahead.
Just want to give a shout out to our dear Rabbi Tom and Rebetson Joanne, who have serious problems with their van and aren't here today, and are with us in spirit, but their van really needs a miracle. So
more Beth Shalom MTI related vehicle problems. We've certainly had our share. Okay, so I just wanted to add something that I've been wanting to add for weeks and weeks and keep forgetting. You know, a little while back it was my birthday, and a few people on live stream, I'm sure they're on live stream because I've heard some of their names mentioned here. I want to thank you for some of the things that you sent, the Marashinos, the McGuffins, and Leanne. We got the things that you sent, so we do appreciate that very much. And some of that wasn't necessarily for my birthday, but just things that you decided to send. So a little tough for me to write notes and mail notes out and all those kind of things. I need like a secretary to do all those kind of things, but you know, with the busyness. But I do want to make sure that you hear how much I appreciate the 2 shirts that I got and the elderberry stuff and that kind of thing. It's very nice. Thank you so much. Okay. We do want to pray for all those that have asked for prayer since the last time we were here and make sure that that's included in our prayers as well as the praises. My cough is getting better, which is a blessing, and that's good. I mean, it's still around, but not too bad. Okay. Awesome. And keep praying for, especially when we have these leadership meetings. Pray for the meetings tomorrow. We have all the leadership meetings as well as the general session, and that they will be productive and functional things that do help bring us further along in our service to the body. Okay. And so we do have meetings tomorrow that we would like you to keep in prayer. Okay, let's pray. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. Father, we come before you, and we want to begin by recognizing you as King, as sovereign, as creator, as having authority over all that exists since you brought it into existence, and that nothing that exists can withstand your desire, your will, and your plan. So, Father, we want to just appreciate that you would allow us the opportunity to have a relationship with you where we would have the ability to come before your throne and praise your holy name and ask for your intervention and attention on things in our lives that are going on. And so, Father, we want to thank you for all those things you do, the small and the great, the things that remind us that you're there, that you're aware of our lives, that you care about what's going on, that you just remind us that you're present with us and that you're watching over us. So, Father, we thank you and we praise you for those things. We also appreciate the opportunity to come before you and to ask. And that as we ask knowing and believing confidently that you hear and answer all prayer, and also acknowledging that your answer may not be the way we would do it or the way we would want it, but we have to accept, and we ask you to help us accept that your answer is always the right one. And so, Father, we just want to come now before you with all humility, with all appreciation, just overwhelmed with the blessing of having a relationship with you so that we can come and praise your holy name as we ask all these things in the name of Yeshua our Messiah. Amen ve'amen. All right, amen. Okay, if you'll all rise for the liturgy, Brianna will come up and lead us. And we should also add Kelly to our list. Kelly is, David's wife Kelly is at home today with him also, and she can use prayer for some physical issues. And so, go ahead, let's add her to the list as well. Okay.
Baruch hu et Yahweh HaMorach, Baruch Yahweh HaMorach ve'olam va'ed. Bless Yahweh who is blessed. Blessed be Yahweh who is blessed forever and ever. Ma tovu. Ma tovu. Oh, hallelujah. And in thy great compassion, I will come into your house. There I will bow. There I will fear thy holiness. Oh yeah. Shema. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod, Malchuto Le'olam Vayed. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh is one. Blessed be his name, whose glorious kingdom is forever. Amen v'hafta. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart. And you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorpost of your house, and on your gates. Amen. V'hafta l'orecha chamocha. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. מי כמוך. מי כמוך בימים יהוה. מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נור עד ההילות. Oh, say vele. Oh, say vele. Like you, Yahweh, among the gods. Who is like you, mighty in holiness? You are awesome in praise, doing wonders, Yahweh, doing wonders, Yahweh. Veshamru. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני יובין, בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כששת ימים עשה יהוה את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינבש, שבת וינבש, שבת וינבש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Amen. Together. And the children of Israel shall keep the Shabbat, to make the Shabbat throughout their generations an eternal covenant between me and the children of Israel. It is a sign forever. That in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, we're going to get the children up here once we get the chuppah set up. Thank you, Brianna. Great job with the liturgy. Okay, once we get the chuppah set up, we'll get the children underneath there. Do we need one more person to hold it? Austin's going to grab one. Good job. And Dale, why don't you come out here so the camera can pick you up? Which camera are we going to get them on? Over here? Okay, that's good. All right, children, come on under. All right, and now once we get the children underneath here, we're going to have Looks like everybody's here. If you'll extend your hearts and hands towards the children, Dale will lead us in the blessing over the children.
Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, we come before you, Father, today humbly to just thank you, Father, for the blessings that you've blessed this congregation with, Father, all the abundance of children that are here to be with us, to learn and to grow with us, Father. And we just want to thank you for that. And we just hope that we are perfect examples, or at least the best examples that we can be, to provide them with leadership and guidance so that they can grow to be covenanted adults, Father. And we just want to thank you, Father, for allowing us the opportunity to do that. In your Son, Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen, amen. Okay, children, you're dismissed to your classes. All the rest of you may be seated. We'll give a few seconds for everybody to get settled in. All right, Hama'aseh v'hatruma, the tithe and the offerings. The purpose of tithing, as we understand it, is to teach us to always put Yahweh first in our lives. Also for us to appreciate his abundant blessings. We have a couple of teachings that covers all that. We don't take up a formal offering here at the congregation, but we do have a box in the back, as well as donation buttons on our website, on YouTube, and everywhere else that you would access. But we do want to ask a blessing on those who are providing the tithes and the offerings. Blessed are you, Yahweh your Elohim, King of the universe, who commanded and made promises to us concerning the tithe and the offerings. May you open up the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing that cannot be contained as we walk in these mitzvot and these commandments. Amen. Amen. All right. So, announcements time. So we'll continue along the idea of helping to support the ministry, since obviously that's part of what the tithes and offerings does. Of course, you're not doing it to support the ministry. You're doing it in obedience to what Abba has said, to the Father's commandment to give of the offerings of your abundance of your heart, and also the tithes of your productive, we'll call it your productive income, okay? And so if you don't understand all that, you'll have to just go listen to the teachings. We do have a couple of other ways that you can support our ministry without spending an additional single penny. If you are someone who uses Amazon.com, we have two programs that we work with them with. One is that we're affiliates, and as affiliates of Amazon, we have a link on our website, mtoi.org. If you go to our website and then look for the support with Amazon link or tab, and then you click on that one, it'll take you to Amazon from us, which gives them an understanding that we referred you, and then we get a referral fee based on what you purchase. And that adds up to a couple of $100 a month, which helps pay for a lot of the programs that we do and things like that. And so we appreciate that. Also, we're part of the Amazon Smile program, which is smile.amazon.com, smile.amazon.com. And when we go to smile.amazon.com, you will select the ministry which you want to serve, and that you just type in the four letters, not serve, but the ministry you want to support. And you will type in MTOI, and those four letters will get you what you need in terms of a pull-up Cleveland, Tennessee, and then you say yes. And then from then on, instead of going to regular Amazon.com, you go to Amazon through the smile.amazon.com link. Same shopping you did before, Amazon Prime, whatever it is that you would be doing. Same exact thing, all right? Now, there are those online that I know already are going, hey, why is he talking about business on Shabbat? Well, I'm not talking about business. I'm talking about how you can support us and how you can do that without spending any additional money. Don't do this today. That means that I'm not trying to encourage you to do anything today. This is for when you do, and it's not Shabbat, okay? All right, I want to welcome our guests. We do have some guests here today, so I want to welcome all of you, and we do have a few, so appreciate you guys being here. We have to exemplify being the children of Abraham, that we are exemplifying his reputation for being the most hospitable of men, and so we want our hospitality to shine with our guests here. After services, we do have our oneg, which is our fellowship meal. All of you are welcome to stay and participate in that. And so we're looking forward to spend some time with you after services. Upcoming things, the calendar. Okay, important dates. Tomorrow, maybe you need to save some of my voice for tomorrow. I'm going to be in meetings for like 12 hours tomorrow. Okay, so, excuse me, starting at 10 a.m. All right, so all of you that are in leadership, you should have gotten an email, or we'll get an email from David Hayes, but your leadership meetings are at the same time they always are, and the same links that you would normally use to get in the meetings. The big difference this time is that we are doing a general session, which we will do live here, okay? So you're welcome to come here, because I'll be here all day anyway. We'll just do the general session from here, live. We're going to YouTube it, so if any of you are on live stream, you can come to the general session. We're going to YouTube it. We won't be able to hear you ask questions or comments, but you can type them in, and we'll have, Manny or whoever, read them for us that way, okay? So that is tomorrow. Let's see. Okay, then on Tuesday, we have our normal Torah study every week on Tuesdays, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. The general session, by the way, is 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, okay? Okay, so Torah study also at 8 o'clock Eastern on the 23rd, and that will be, of course, here again, live. We'll be doing it on YouTube. August 2nd, okay? August 2nd is Rosh Chodesh Av, okay? And that's the first of Av. That Friday is actually Rosh Chodesh, but because sundown is like 8:45 or something like that, we're going to do Erev Shabbat dinner here at 6:30, and then we'll do the Rosh Chodesh service at 8 o'clock. Okay, so that we have that. Then on September 30th, that's Rosh Hashanah, okay, or we'll call it Yom Teruah, the Day of Trumpets, the head of the years and the counting of years. And so some of you online are already having a cow that I called it Rosh Hashanah. Well, you know what? I think we're going to have a lot of milk and stuff with all the cows people are having. We'll have plenty of cows providing, okay? But I'll teach more and you'll hear more. If you go listen to the teaching call, the appointed times, you'll hear me explain about Rosh Hashanah. If you go to Leviticus chapter 25, you'll see that the counting of years begins right after Yom Kippur, and the month with Yom Kippur is Tishrei, which is the month of Yom Teruah or Rosh Hashanah, so we can call it that. It's not a problem, because it's how we count years. We count days of months for feasts starting in the month of Aviv, but we start the counting of years with Tishrei, okay, because that's when we count Jubilees and Shemitah, the years of release. Okay, October the 9th is Yom Kippur, and so you need these dates for your calendars for days off at work and everything. We do have a page on our website called Holy Feast Days, and you certainly can go there and see all of the dates. And then, of course, Sukkot is coming, October the 13th through 22nd. Now, Sukkot itself is the 14th through the 20th, and with the 21st being Shemini Atzeret, the celebration of the 8th day, the 8th day festival. But you would be there on the 13th because it starts at the end of the 13th going into the 14th. And we do have the paperwork now on the website. The Sukkot page is up. And we do have about 15 or 20 copies of the application for Sukkot on the back table. You can grab a copy after services. And, of course, no business during services, but just have the copy for yourself. If you don't have ease of access to a printer, at least you can have an application. A registration form is on the registration form is over by the offering box, okay? If you happen to stay here until after sundown, then you could take care of that after sundown. All right. So that's going to do it for the announcements. I just decided we were close enough to the fall feast that I should mention them during the announcements because I haven't done that in a while. I've mentioned Sukkot, but I wanted to bring in trumpets and atonement and make sure that they've gotten those dates mentioned for all of us. All right. So that should do it on the announcements. Am I missing anything? No. Okay. Always check with my beautiful wife, the Rebbitzin, in case I missed something in the announcements. All right. You guys ready? Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and make sure your phones are on silent. Okay. This will probably be a new one for our photographer that's here. They hear something that's starting in part 48 of something, but that's what we're up to, right? 48? Did I get that right? All right. Now, before we start, well, I don't know, maybe I'll actually put it in the recording. Well, actually, I want to say something, we'll put it in the recording. How's that? Are we ready back there? Thumbs up? Okay. And I dropped my pen. Okay. Let me just get set where I need to be, then we'll start. I do have something I want to say, though. Probably should have a little sip of water, too. All right, here we go. Are You Covenanted, Part 48. Yeah. All right. Overwhelming. Okay. So as we get into Part 48, it seems like I should probably remind everyone of some important things before we kind of get started. And I thought it'd be good to just get this in the recording. Okay? This is 48 parts. And there's a possibility, and I know it's none of you, but there's a possibility that some of you may be getting bored. And some of you might be wanting me to move on. And we are. We're moving on through the book of Romans right now. And some of you may be whatever. It doesn't matter. The point is this. I want to just encourage everyone two things. Remember what I said a long time ago, the teachings were designed to do. They were supposed to have you understand the subject so that you can do it, so you can defend it, and so that you can teach it. Okay? So you're going to have to hear these things over and over to get to the fourth level of this. So if you think I'm repeating myself or repeating certain points, you might want to first examine yourself to see if you actually are doing those things that you're all bored about and complaining about. That, all right, I've heard that already. You know, you see a lot of that going on in the scriptures too. I heard that already, but are you doing it? And then there's a second point, separate from that but connected to it, which is, you know what, maybe you are getting it. Maybe you've gotten it weeks ago. Hey, that's fantastic. But you know what? Some of you still need this. And so I want you to recognize that that's an incredibly selfish thought when you're not thinking about the fact that others may need this, even if you don't. Some of you pick things up right away, other things you struggle with. The things you pick up right away, others are struggling with. So I don't want you to be all like, well, yeah, I got it already, Rabbi. Yeah, but not everybody has. Let them sit and learn, and you can sit there and appreciate that this time it wasn't for you, it was for somebody else. Not every message is for you. Actually, they all are. I'll say that louder. Actually, they all are. But you don't always recognize it. And so probably the ones that you're least interested in are the ones that you need the most. But because you're not in the right mindset, you're not receiving it. You're not seeing those key nuggets that others are going, oh, that was exactly what I needed, because you're like, yeah. You're missing stuff if you can have that attitude. I'm just encouraging you. I'm not trying to scold you or whatever. I'm saying you are doing yourself a terrible disservice if you can't appreciate that you need to hear things. Look, I'm not just making this idea up. You have a Bible. We call it the scriptures, whatever you call it. And in that Bible, your Creator who speaks to you in that Bible says things over and over and over and I can go on and on with the overs. Does He bore you? Some of you are thinking, yes, He does. Well, then you have a problem, don't you? But He says things over and over and over for a reason. We need to hear it over and over and over. So yes, we're in part 48 because these things are that important. And quite frankly, this stuff we're doing in Romans and in Corinthians that we did before that, many of you have never had it unraveled that way before, and you needed to hear that. And we're going to do more of that today as we continue in Romans. And so I really want to just encourage you, examine yourself and your approach and your attitude when you listen to these teachings. Maybe this isn't the one that lights up your life and says, the epiphany I needed is right there. But you know what? It might be doing that for somebody else. And that should be good enough for you. Be excited that somebody, if I'm saying it and you trust I'm anointed and appointed and Abba's giving me the words, that means somebody listening needed it, even if you don't think it's you. So you should be excited that somebody's getting what they're getting. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay? All right, so let's have that approach as we go through this. So, we're in chapter 8 of Romans. Now remember, what we've been dealing with in Romans is Paul is trying to deal with, I'm kind of doing a quick reset, a couple of issues going on. The two main issues being this warring between two factions, the Jewish believers and the Gentile believers, which we know there's no such thing as a Gentile believer. The Gentiles by becoming believers, and the Jews by becoming believers, all are Israel. We're going to really get into that more when we get to chapter 11. But there's a rift between those who came into it born Gentile and those who are born Jewish, born covenanted, so to speak. And we see that battle going on for about 8 chapters. Now, we also see a second thing, which is that Paul is dealing with 2 sets of laws. The law of sin and death, the law that rages in our members, that fleshly law of we think we know what's right and wrong, and that leads to death, versus the Torah, the instructions from above, from the creator of the universe, that leads to life. And now as we go here into chapter 8, we started to notice that it's starting to talk about this idea in verse 16 and 17 that we would be heirs, co-heirs with Messiah, and we're going to get much more into that as we get into chapter 11 eventually. And so that's our kind of context as we continue here. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit. I know we ended a little bit further on into the chapter, but I'm going to go back to verse 18 as we're going to reset when we start talking about creation and its groanings and the expectations. So let's look at 18. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the esteem that is to be revealed in us. Now, Paul is saying very clearly here that they are suffering, and there's a lot of suffering going on at that present time. Do we see anything different today? No. So for all of you that maybe came through a church or a Christian system that kind of had you feel like, hey, just come and believe in Messiah and everything's going to come up roses and all your problems will be solved, and if they're not, then you must be doing something wrong, okay? He's saying, wait a minute, I reckon the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing. That's what we should be doing, is saying this suffering isn't even worth comparing to what is coming. Comparing, in other words, it's worth it. Comparing with the esteem that shall be revealed in us. Go back and listen to the endure teaching. Endure and receive the crown of life teaching. See, we need to be patiently going through this walk because it's a race that has to be run all the way to the end. Paul talks about that in other places. Run the race to finish the race, to win the race. And they'll go listen to the overcoming teaching. He who overcomes, all those wonderful things are listed in Revelation. It says in the conclusion of us, that he who overcomes shall receive all these things. All those things that you're looking forward to are to the overcomer. Well, you wouldn't have to overcome if there wasn't anything to overcome. And so that stuff was going on in Rav Shaul and Paul's days, going on now. Can you say, as he's saying, that you reckon these sufferings, that you're reckoning these sufferings as nothing, as not even worth considering when compared to the esteem, the glory, the honor that will be revealed if you maintain the journey, if you complete the journey? That's really important. And we're going to talk about in here, in this section, as we go into chapters 8 and 9, that there's going to be verses that talk about how nothing can separate us from Messiah. This is true. Nothing can separate you from Messiah, but you can leave. You can separate yourself. No outside force can separate you unless you let it. We're going to get to that at some point here. So here we are dealing with these things, and we have to recognize that all that we're going through, as much as it's a suffering, and it's real, and it's palpable, and it's painful, and it's real, it's still, if you can have that mindset that it's not even worth even considering and letting it overwhelm you because the esteem that's going to be revealed in you later. If you just hold on and keep moving forward. Amen? Okay, so let's continue. He says, for the intense longing of the creation eagerly awaits for the revealing of the sons of Elohim. And it's not just the creation, meaning like all of the world and the universe and everything, but us too. We are absolutely intensely longing for what's coming, aren't we? At least you should be. And if you're not, you need to start examining yourself as to why do you not intensely long for what is coming. See, focusing on those things above helps you deal with those things below. When you focus on the things below, you forget about all the things above. We get it backwards. Focus as much as you can your attention on the things above, and you'll deal with the things below. Focus with the things above, and you'll deal with the things below. If you focus on the things below, you won't even be aware of the things above. That's when you get in trouble, because your attention is going to be on what you're dealing with below in the fleshly stuff. You will not be focusing correctly, and then that distraction will make you miss the mark on the things above. You'll lose your awareness on the things above. And so you won't be doing the things you need to do that have to do with the things above. So let's keep that kind of in our mind. It should be as frontless before our eyes. You got to remember, he says that these things, loving him with all our hearts, mind, body, etc., are supposed to be like frontless before our eyes. The words he's commanding us. We should have them always aware in our thoughts, is what that means. For the creation was subjected to futility, verse 20, not from choice, but because of him who subjected it in anticipation, that the creation itself also shall be delivered from the bondage to corruption into the esteemed freedom of the children of Elohim. Now notice, here it uses the word delivered instead of saved. See, same idea. We were delivered from bondage to corruption. We read that in Ephesians 2. Remember, several times in these teachings, we keep going back there. The idea that we were delivered even though we were starting off in our sin, in our corruption. How? Why is this going on? So that we can be delivered into the esteemed freedom of the children of Elohim. The freedom to choose the master to whom you serve, because we were told earlier that there is a changing of master going on here. Do you not know that your master to whom you serve? We read that also in the previous weeks. And so also we know from James's writings that there's a Torah of freedom. The law is the law of freedom. So he says here, for the creation was subjected to futility. And we were told in other places that we've been doing things in the futility of our own minds. When you were doing it your way, working under the law of sin and death, working under your own ideas of what was right and wrong, that was the efforts in futility. But now we're doing things that actually are productive and will bring life if we just subject ourselves to his will, his understanding, and do it his way. Isn't that the covenant? If you agree to do it my way, then it won't be futile. It'll actually produce the fruit that you've always wanted. I will take care of all things, he says. You will be my people. Verse 22, for we know that all the creation groans together and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now. And again, it's not just talking about the universe or the world in some metaphoric way. We are all groaning. I've heard you groaning. And not always is it because you're hungry, okay? Life is hard, and I've said, and apparently we're not very good at it, okay? Life's tough, and we groan because we're anticipating and waiting, and Abba, come now. Messiah, come now. Bring the kingdom now. Enough of this already. We all have those moments where we groan. And not only so, but even we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, we ourselves also groan within ourselves, eagerly waiting for the adoption, the redemption of our body. Okay, so now we're going to start getting some more of this metaphor of adoption. And so the idea being, because remember we talked about in verse 16, it said the Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are the children of Elohim. And if children, also heirs, truly heirs of Elohim. This idea of heirs through adoption, we're seeing that going on. And he says that we, not just the people of the world, not just the world itself, but we, even those of the first fruits, groan within ourselves, eagerly waiting for the adoption. Not the adoption in sort of type, which is we're going to see the grafting together in Romans 11. But the real adoption that comes when we are transformed and conformed into his image and we are taking off the corruptible and putting on the incorruptible. That real adoption. He says, for in this expectation we were delivered, but expectation that is seen is not expectation, for when anyone sees, does he expect it? So he's saying is, if you already see it, if you already have it, then you're not expecting anything. This is the problem. That's why the Are You Saved teaching is so important. See, they are teaching out there that you're saved now, so there's no expectation. So you're not making the effort. We make the effort because of the expectation of ultimately being saved. You've been delivered, you're being delivered, and ultimately will be. So you can say you've been saved, you're being saved, and you will be saved. But when you talk about it and receive it as a finished, sort of completed term, guess what you're not going to do? You're not going to be doing anything because you have already seen the expectation. And if you've seen it, does he expect it? No. But if we expect what we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with endurance. See, some of you maybe have not read this section this way before. But it's all about that idea of being saved is going on here. For this, in this expectation, we were saved or delivered. But expectation that is not expectation, but expectation that is seen is not expectation. In other words, if you think you've already got it, then what are you expecting? So be careful with that. So Paul's making this really clear if you can receive what he's saying. All right? And if we expect what we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with endurance. And in the same way, the Spirit, the Ruach, does help in our weaknesses. For we do not know what we should pray, but the Spirit itself pleads our case for us with groanings unutterable. Now, bear in mind, for all of you Pentecostals or former Messicostals or whatever you are out there, charismatics, it says the groanings are unutterable. These are not groanings that you utter. These are not languages. These are not tongues. These are not moanings and weird. He says these are unutterable. You are not speaking them. I think people confuse this verse badly. Okay? Yes. Think of it when, have you ever been in so much pain and misery that you can't even speak? And someone comes up to you and sees you in that pain and misery, and all you can do is go, because you can't even, just sound is coming out with no words, nothing uttered. You're just moaning. You're just in so much pain, you just can't even put words to it. I'm not talking about some language like people think about in the charismatics. I'm talking about you really can't put anything to it. All that's coming out of you is a groan. Because he says, look, in the same way the Ruach does help us in our weaknesses, for we do not know what we should pray, but the Spirit pleads our case. See, this is one of those things that Kenneth Copeland, those guys all quote this verse. When we don't know what to pray, the Spirit will... No, but it's groanings unutterable. So if you're uttering them, then that's not what he's talking about. Is it not that simple? Okay? The Word of Faith guys quote this verse all the time. When we don't know what to pray, then we have to pray in the Spirit. No, that is not what it says here. It says the Spirit is going to do this, not you. And make intervention. The Spirit's going to plead our case for us, not you, or you make. It says unutterable. There's nothing for you to say here. You're just moaning in pain. We've all seen that in our children, right? So maybe they hurt themselves or they fall or do something, and all they're doing is just laying there like, what? And you want to get them to tell you what's wrong, and they can't. They're just in such pain. All they do is moan. This is what he's talking about. And remember, this is linked to, I reckon the sufferings of this present time. So we're suffering. Yet he says, but if you have eagerness and you've got anticipation and expectation, you can handle the sufferings because of the expectation. And don't worry about what to pray. The Ruach understands what you're going through and will make intercession. But nothing's coming out of your mouth. Not in this section anyway. This is when you can't have words, when there are no words. Because Abba knows what's going on in your life intimately. And so the Spirit is going to go ahead and make our case, plead our case for us with groanings unutterable. And it searches, and he who searches the hearts knows what the mind of the Spirit is, because he makes intercession for the set-apart ones according to Elohim. He who searches the hearts. Who's the he who searches the hearts? Yahweh. See, that's another thing I'm sure is not taught that way. How many verses do you see in the Tanakh where it says that he searches our hearts and tests our kidneys and checks and understands what's our gut, where we are in things? Who's the one who searches the hearts? Yahweh does. He says, Yahweh, who searches the hearts, knows what the mind of the Ruach is. He knows what the Ruach is thinking. It's connected. It's part of its connection with him. He says, because he makes intercession for the set-apart ones according to Elohim. And we know that all matters work together for good to those who love Elohim, to those who are called according to his purpose, because those whom he knew beforehand, again, we're talking about the same he as in verse 27. Those whom he, Yahweh, knew beforehand, he also ordained beforehand to be conformed to the likeness of his Son, for him to be the firstborn among many brothers. For whom he ordained beforehand, these he also called. And whom he called, these he also declared right. And whom he declared right, these he also esteemed. Now, you got to follow along here because he does explain this a little bit. Verse 29 gets a little, and 30 gets a little confusing when it says, ordained beforehand. Right? In verse 29 it says, because those whom he knew beforehand, he also ordained beforehand. Which ones? The ones who he called. Verse 30 explains it. Because some of you may get confused in verse 29. Well, who did he ordain beforehand? The ones who he knew would make it if he gave them the opportunity and opened their eyes and ears. The ones he chose, the timing to open their eyes and their ears. So he calls them. And the ones whom he called, then he declares them right because as they respond to the call. They're not just declared right just because he called them and just they did nothing. He's really abbreviating a huge process into like one sentence. He's giving you the whole process in like one sentence. He knows you. He knows the end from the beginning. He ordains and pre-selects you, opens your eyes, opens your ears, opens your heart. You now make choices, and in those choices, in being called, you respond and you get declared right. And in getting declared right, you are also glorified or honored, esteemed. Did you follow that? Now, he says, what then shall we say to this? If Elohim is for us, who is against us? In other words, he's saying, look, this is all connected to the idea of we are suffering, and those suffering should not be a distraction from what we're supposed to be doing. So he's going to round that off with, if Elohim is for us, right, he knew what we'd be going through. He knew where we were when he called us. He knew what our life journey would look like. Yet he chose to open our eyes and ears and call us because he knew. So when it says when he ordained beforehand, in other words, he knows the end from the beginning. So he knows what you're going to do, where you're going to go, what choices you're going to make. And then he chose to pick you at that moment and open your eyes and heart and ears, whatever, to reveal himself to you. He chose that moment to reveal himself to you. And so that's why we can look at this process of because he ordained it from beforehand, he ordained beforehand, he called, and from being called, then there's a declaration of being made right, and after being declared right, we are then esteemed. That's a process that he really briefly, super briefly, puts in this really abbreviated thing. So he says in verse 32 now, truly, he who did not spare his own son, but delivered him up on behalf of us all, how shall he not, along with him, freely give us all else? In other words, we're doing this as imitators of Messiah. We're following this process, and he's trying to say, look, if he did it for Yeshua and went through what he did, he'll do it for you. Because this is an adoption process. So you get treated like his son. He's allowing you to suffer. Yeshua suffered. Yeshua died and was resurrected. He's saying you can die and be resurrected. He said, how much more would he not give us all else? Who shall bring any charge against Elohim's chosen? Now this is going back to that rift that's going on, people attacking the chosen ones. Who is he who who shall bring any charge against Elohim's chosen ones? It is Elohim who is declaring right. Who is he who is condemning? It is Messiah who died. And furthermore, is also raised up, who is also at the right hand of Elohim, who also makes intercession for us. Wait a minute, Messiah makes intercession for us. And so it says the Spirit in verse 27 makes intercession for us. And John 14 tells us that he's going to send a helper, the Ruach, the Spirit that will be there to help us. And then he says that he will not leave us orphans. Can you not see that it's still referring to Yeshua? Through the means by which, called the Ruach. You don't understand what I'm talking about? You need to listen to Do You Know the Father and the Son and understanding the Ruach. Okay? Now, actually, with all of this suffering and the process with that, you probably need to listen to baptism of fire to understand that process, okay? I think Marty was telling me the other day that last teaching I mentioned like 10 other teachings, so we'll see if we can break the record. All right. Here we go. So what's happening here is that there's this problem in verse 34. Who was he who was condemning? So in other words, there are people attacking each other. That was the problem all throughout the first 7 chapters here in Romans, that there's this rift and fighting and pointing of fingers and condemning that's going on. He says, hold on a second. Verse 35. Who shall separate us from the love of Messiah? Shall pressure or distress or persecution or scarcity of food or nakedness or danger or sword? As it has been written, for your sake we are killed all day long. We are reckoned as sheep of slaughter. But in all this, we are more than overcomers through him who loved us. In all this, we should be more than overcomers. Go back and listen to the overcoming teaching, right? He says, for I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor messengers, nor principalities, nor powers, neither the present, nor the future, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of Elohim, which is in Messiah Yeshua, our Master. Nothing will separate us from his love. You can separate yourself from him. Look, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, go to John 15. He says, all who stay in me and those who don't stay in me get burned up in the fire. Maybe we should just go there real quickly to John 15. Just want to make sure you understand that you can leave. Some of you once saved, always saved people who don't understand that whole process. You don't understand. There's no reason to tell anybody to stay unless they can leave. Let me just quickly write in my notes. We're going to John 15. Okay? In John 15, verse 1, I am the true vine, my Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that bears no fruit he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit he prunes so that it bears more fruit. He says, you are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you. Now listen to verse 4. Stay in me, and I stay in you. Why would he tell you to stay unless you could leave? Look at verse 6. If anyone does not stay in me, wait a minute, it's possible to not stay in him. I don't know if I'm reading this wrong. Maybe you're reading it wrong. I think it's straightforward and clear. Messiah is saying, if anyone does not stay, that's got to be what you call a saved person, those of you that come from that place. That's got to be what you call a believer. That's got to be what you call a person who's covenanted or whatever. It's someone, why would you say stay unless you had to be in there in the first place? You had to come in. And he says, now when you're in, you need to stay because you can leave. It's very important that we understand. He says, verse 7, if you stay in me, by the way, the one who doesn't stay in, what happens? He's thrown away as a branch that dries up, and they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they're burned. So much for once saved, always saved. Okay, but verse 7, but if you stay in me, and my words, see, it's not just staying in him, claiming, well, I'm in him, I believe in Messiah, I'm of Messiah. No, and my words stay in you. He says, then you shall ask whatever you wish and it shall be done for you. Okay? You've got to be walking this out. His words have to stay in you, and you have to live by them. Those that say they know him and do not keep his commandments are liars, and the truth is not in them. 1 John. Let's remember these things, right? Let's go back to Romans. So where did I go with that? I went through 7. Okay, go back to Romans. Okay, so he's making this case, saying, look, you're going to go through, let's go to verse 35 again, pressure, distress, persecution, scarcity of food, nakedness, danger, sword. You're going to go through all of these things. And guess what? Going through them should not be, the issue as far as you leaving or anybody pushing you away. You should be able to handle all that stuff. And in handling all that stuff, you should be able to, give me a second, I'm looking for something at the same time. I want to take us to something that fits right in with it if you give me a second to find it. I'm not finding it quick enough here, unfortunately. In Matthew. Okay, got it? All right. So let me say where I'm going with this. All right, he said, right, pressure, distress, persecution, scarcity of food, nakedness, danger, sword. None of these things should separate you from Messiah, and they can't in themselves. Those things in themselves can't. Pressure, distress. Do those things sound like a parable? What parable does that sound like? The sower of the seed. Good. So if you go to Matthew 13, which is where I was just kind of remembering to go look for real quick. Sorry, as I'm like putting the teaching together as I'm teaching you. Okay? But if you look at verse 20, all right? It says, and that sown on rocky places, this is he who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy, yet he has no root in himself, but is short-lived, and when pressure or persecution arises because of the word, immediately he stumbles. You think Paul understood all these things? Absolutely. Okay? Absolutely. And see, this is, by the way, if you want to understand what it looks like to see the Ruach at work, that was it. It stirs to remembrance, not in my notes. You can do these same things, be open to it, but you got to put this stuff in. So that when key words pop up like persecution and pressure, wow, it's exactly the same words right there in the sower of the seed. Of course, as I put the teaching together, he didn't give it to me until now. Sometimes it takes me reading it out loud in front of you guys and just getting out of the way. And that's the way he operates with me. But, just understand that that's what we talk about. We're looking at verses here in chapter 8 of Romans, and he says the exact same thing. Pressure, distress, and persecution. Are you going to be the one who, because of the word, stumbles? It says, yet he has no root in himself. In other words, it's surface. You got excited. You like the idea of not burning and having death, and you like the idea of eternal hell. You like the idea of having every tear wiped away. You loved all that stuff, and so you got excited about it, but you didn't understand that the other part of this, the suffering part, was included, at least in this fleshly life. You didn't read the whole agreement. Yeshua said, I suffered, you'll suffer too. Paul's telling us the same thing here in Romans. And so you need to have that all clear, okay? But just remember, none of these things shall be able to separate us from the love of Elohim, which is in Messiah Yeshua, our Master, unless we allow it to separate ourselves. Not that he'll stop loving us, we will separate ourselves from him. What choices are you going to make? Are you going to leave? Are you going to make choices that create a separation between you and Messiah? This is really important. Chapter 9. I forgot to set my screensaver, so that give me 1 second so that it doesn't shut off. So when I look down, I can actually see. The timer. Okay, there we go. All right, chapter 9. I speak the truth in Messiah, I do not lie, my conscience also bearing me witness in the set-apart spirit, that I have great sadness and continual grief in my heart, for I myself could have wished to be banished from Messiah for the sake of my brothers, my relatives according to the flesh, who are Israelites. So now he's going to get into, we're really building up to this two groups coming together in chapter 11. Okay, we're really building up to it now. So now he's going to talk about his side, his brothers. He noticed that he refers to, he's a Benjamite, but he refers to his brothers, he says they are Israelites. Now listen to the way he describes them. Verse 4, they are Israelites, whose is the adoption and the esteem and the covenants. We finally got to one of the covenant verses, right? Verse 9 of chapter 4, verse 4 for chapter 9. And the giving of the Torah, the law, and the worship, and the promises, who are the fathers, and from whom is the Messiah according to the flesh, who is over all. Elohim be blessed forever. Amen. So he's trying to say, look, I would give myself up for these people. I would give myself up. I would take whatever would be necessary so that they would see and own what they need to own so they could do what they need to do to be properly in covenant. He said, but my brothers, they've made mistakes. He says, however, verse 6, it is not as though the word of Elohim has failed. For they, listen now, because people say, oh, well, they blew it. This is the Christian mindset as well. The Jews blew it. He says, oh, no. He says, it's not as though the word of Elohim has failed. Elohim made promises. That word does not fail. He says, for they are not all Israel who are Israel. Now, this is being used by racists all over the world. It's used by a lot of people to kind of point. The black Hebrew Israelites do this, and other segments do this. A lot of that replacement theology that does this. Oh, and they want to attack the anti-Semitic guys, want to say that the Jews aren't really the Jews. That's not what he's talking about. There's Israel by birth, and there's Israel by covenant. He's saying they are absolutely Israel by birth. They're not Israel by choice. Okay, you could be born here in America, and you can choose to go move and live in another country. Although you're American by birth, but not an American by choice. You see what I'm saying? He says, not all Israel are Israel. So he says, not all who are born Israel are actually covenanting to be Israel. So let's understand that. Neither are they all children because they are the seed of Abraham. He's making it more clear in verse 7. Just because they're the seed of Abraham doesn't make them all children. But in Yitzchak your seed shall be called. Now, why does he mention Yitzchak? Why does he mention Isaac? Okay, he mentions Isaac because it then goes to Jacob, and we're going to see that in a minute here. But he mentions Isaac because through Yitzchak, he says, not through who you thought, through your other child, but through the child that I'm going to you. I'm making the choices. Yahweh's making the choices. He says, now watch. He says, that is, those who are children of the flesh that are not children of Elohim, but the children of the promise are reckoned as the seed. For this is the word of the promise. At this time I shall come, and Sarah shall have a son. And not only so, but Rivkah, having conceived by one, our father Isaac, yet before they were born or had done any good. Now he's going to explain this whole children of promise thing. Notice what happens. Before they were born, who was born? Jacob and Esau. All right? Before they were born, he said, in the order that the purpose of Elohim according to choice, that's the issue here. Not according to bloodline or birth order, but according to choice. That's what Paul's talking about here, is your choices. Those who would choose to be or not to be Israel or covenanted. He says, in order that the purpose of Elohim according to choice might stand, not of works, but of him who calls. So again, not of works meaning not of the fact that they're born in the right order. In other words, not in a thing that was done, but by choice to do. He said, it was said to her, the greater shall serve the lesser. As it has been written, Yaakov I have loved, but Esau I have hated. What then shall we say? Is there unrighteousness with Elohim? Let it not be. Because again, you remember this shifting thing that's going on here. You know, the Jews may say it's wrong to let the Gentiles in because, hey, it's our thing. And the Gentiles will be sitting there going, no, you guys blew it. All of that could look like some sort of unrighteousness with Elohim. He says, no, let it not be. For he who says to Moshe, I shall favor whomever I favor, I shall have compassion on whoever I have compassion, so then it is not of him who is wishing, nor of him who is running, but of Elohim who shows favor. He says, look, I get to choose. In other words, now bear in mind, this is not those who are already chosen saying it doesn't matter what they do. He says, what you do doesn't force me to choose you. Did you follow that? Some will read this and say, oh, well, it doesn't matter what you do. He chooses to give favor or not. No, he's not saying that. He says, look, it's not of those who are running. It's not of those who are wishing, nor whatever, that he then chooses. He just chooses who he chooses. So he doesn't choose you just because you're Israel by birth. He chooses you because he chooses you. He shall have favor on who he chooses. He'll have compassion on who he chooses. You don't get a say in it. But don't read more into this. This is still talking about beforehand stuff. Before they were born, he chose. Right? So he has chosen you also from before. He knows what you're going to do. Why did he choose Jacob over Esau before in the womb? Because he knew what they would do. Why did he call you before you were born? And he knew. before you were born what you would do. And he knew exactly when he would poke you and disturb your peace. He knew exactly when he would wake you up and open your eyes and open your ears, etc. But it wasn't because of where you were born or when you were born or who you were born to or any kind of bloodline thing or any kind of wonderful thing you'd done in your life up to that point. In other words, you didn't earn that part. He called you knowing what you would do afterward. That you would be worthy of the calling afterward. Make sense? He says here, for the scripture says to Pharaoh, for this same purpose I have raised you up to show my power in you, that my name be declared in all the earth. So then he favors whom he wishes and he hardens whom he wishes. Then you shall say to me, in other words, when he says Pharaoh, he's saying, look, even the man is the king. He said that didn't make him special to be called to good stuff and everything else. He used him to show his power. Pharaoh didn't get any special treatment just because he was a Pharaoh. He says, so then he favors whom he wishes, and he hardens whom he wishes. Then you shall say to me, why does he still find fault? For who has resisted his counsel? But who are you, O man, to talk back to Elohim? So you guys think I'm tough. You guys would have loved to have Paul. Paul called the Galatians a bunch of fools, called them stupid. Right there, you read it, it's right there in the verses. Here he's talking to the Romans, he's saying, look, some of you guys are talking back to Elohim because you think you know better. You think he's wrong about something. But who are you, O man, to talk back to Elohim? Shall that which is formed say to him who formed it, why have you made me like this? And that's what he's talking about. He's like, why have you called me as a Gentile? Why did you call me as a Jew? Why did you call me at 60 years old? Why didn't you call me at 15 years old? Why did you call me after I lived such a crappy life and did all these dumb things? Why did you call me after I've been married 3 times? Why did you call me? Keep filling in all of that stuff. Now you're questioning his wisdom. So are you arguing with him? Are you talking back to him? Instead of saying, thank you for calling me when you did. Your timing is perfect always, and who am I to question it? He says, does the potter have authority over the clay? From the same lump to make one vessel for value and another for not for value? And if Elohim desire, this also goes to the idea that there are people out there that want to say, oh no, God is love and he loves everybody and it doesn't really matter. No, some vessels he has chosen for value and others not for value. That doesn't sound fair and right. We don't understand all of what he does. His ways are above our ways as the heavens above the earth. His thoughts above our thoughts. Same idea. He says, you're the lump, you're the clay. You're going to talk to the potter and say, I don't like the way you made me. Why have you made me like this? And if Elohim, desiring to show wrath and to make his power known, with much patience tolerated the vessels of wrath prepared for destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his esteem on vessels of compassion, which he had prepared beforehand for esteem, even whom he called, not only us of the Yehudim, but also of the Gentiles. So in other words, look, remember, he let the Jews, the Israelites, suffer in Egypt before he had his esteem revealed through Pharaoh and through the plagues as he brought them out. So not only does he choose who to have compassion on, but he chooses when. He allowed them to be there for a long time under Pharaoh. But then he called them out. As he says in Hosea, also, I shall call them my people who are not my people. Remember we talked about that before? Lo ruchama, lo ami. He said, I shall call them my people who are not my people, and her beloved who is not beloved. And it shall be in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people, they shall be called the sons of the living Elohim. This is Hosea chapter 2. I have it in my notes, verse 23, so I'm assuming that's probably right. It was handwritten in here. So, okay. But remember the timing of that. These are his people. Then they became not his people. But then he said that at some point in the future, it will be said that these are my people, the children of the living Elohim, because he has a plan. And if you don't understand the plan, go back to the Discovering Your Identity teachings. Okay? And I'll explain all of that in great detail. All right. I lost my place. Okay, verse 27. And Yeshayahu, Isaiah, cries out on behalf of Israel. Though the number of the children of Israel be as the sand of the sea, the remnant shall be saved. So again, he's saying, look, yes, though they be as numerous as the sand of the sea, a remnant, which is a small piece, shall be delivered, shall be saved. So even when they were cast out, even when he said, not my people, there was always this remnant to be there. Look, when he wanted to mess up, not mess up, but when Solomon had messed up, when Shlomo had messed up and he was going to take the kingdom away, he said, I'm going to still hold one piece for David HaMelech, for King David's sake, and keep Judah going. Even though I would cast them all out at that point. But he took the 10 and separated them and kept the 2 in the south for David's sake. There's a remnant. Okay, there's a remnant. By the way, that remnant matches the 2 spies and the 10 spies of the 12, right? Okay. Continuing here. For he is bringing a matter to an end and is cutting it short in righteousness, because Yahweh shall cut short a matter on the earth. And as Isaiah said before, if Yahweh of hosts had not left us a seed, we would not have become like Sodom, and we would have become like Sodom and would have become like Gomorrah. In other words, there always needed to be a seed to lead us an example so that we can have a path. We're told that the scepter, we're told that a teacher would not depart from Judah's feet until the coming of Messiah, until the finishing of all things, so that we would have a way to know where the path is. You can't get there if you don't know the way. And we have the way through the Word. You have to know from the Word how to get there. What is the path? He says, what shall we say then? That Gentiles not following after righteousness, having obtained righteousness, even the righteousness of belief, but Israel following after the Torah of righteousness, has not arrived at the Torah of righteousness? So he's saying, so what should we say then? That Gentiles, because they found their way here, now they're great, but the Jews who were started off with it, now they're garbage? He's saying, no, both groups, if you find righteousness, can be in the same place. Why? Because it was not a belief, but as by works of Torah, for they stumbled at the stone of stumbling. So he's saying, look, you're picking on the Jews because they stumbled. Guess what? He says, and remember back to Ephesians, you were without Messiah, without the covenants, and you were without Elohim in the world, until he called you out of all that mess. Israel didn't stay in me. But you know what? They can come back. It's called teshuvah. He says, as has been written in verse 33, see, I lay in Zion a stone of stumbling and a rock that makes for falling, and everyone who is believing on him shall not be put to shame. The problem is, Israel had belief issues. They had some of the mechanics down, but they always had belief issues, and because of belief issues, they messed up the actions. They brought paganism in. They brought idolatry in. They didn't trust Yahweh to protect them. They did all kinds of things they shouldn't do, even though they kept some of it. There should be a lesson to all of you. Keeping some of it doesn't get you like a passing grade. Okay? You're not getting into the kingdom with a C or a B minus. Now, you may be a C or a B minus, but you have to be the one that's striving, in Deuteronomy 8:2, making the effort to get the A. You shouldn't just be walking around going, well, I'm passing, I got a B. The B is not the problem, or the C. Some of you struggle a lot. You came from some places that really make it hard for you to do all of this. Fine, so go through your struggles. But have the Deuteronomy 8:2, where he's testing you to see whether it's in your heart to want the A. That's what it's all about, demonstrating the desire to be perfect, not that you're going to be perfect. So you might be a B minus or a C or whatever, but do you want to be perfect? Are you making the effort? And by the way, maybe you started out at an F or a D, and being at a C or a C minus is progress. Maybe in a couple of years you'll be a C or a B minus. Keep moving. Keep going forward. Keep wanting to get there, to receive the crown, right? This is important as we go through this. Chapter 10. Truly, brothers, my heart's desire and prayer to Elohim for Israel is for deliverance. Now, he's talking about Israel here. He's talking about bloodline Israel. For I bear them witness that they have an ardor for Elohim, but not according to knowledge. For not knowing the righteousness of Elohim and seeking to establish their own righteousness, they did not subject themselves to the righteousness of Elohim. Do we understand that's what's going on here? And we still have people today doing this like rampantly. It's all over the place. They did not, listen, do according to relationship. Knowledge in a relational way. Remember, we talked about this over and over. Knowledge can be informational or relational. The Jews at the time that he was dealing with were doing it informationally, not relationally. If you love me, keep my commandments. Those who say they know me and do not keep the commandments, to say they know him and don't keep the commandments are liars. They're lying about their relationship. They don't know him. Okay, so again, in 1 John, he makes it really clear. He says, the one who says, I know him, verse 4 of 1 John 2. This is right after he says, and by this we know that we know him if we guard his commands. This is a relational idea. John knew the same thing that Paul knew. That one who says, I know him, and doesn't guard the commands is lying, and the truth is not in him. But whoever guards his word, truly the love of Elohim has been perfected in him. And by this we know that we are in him. The one who says he stays in him ought to himself also walk, even as he walked. And I got to write that on my notes. 1 John 2, what did I read? 3 through 6. Okay? Back to Romans. The problem that Israel had, the bloodline Israel, is that, and this happened all the way back in Egypt. And when they came out of Egypt, that same problem happened through the wilderness. And we're reading this now in the Torah portions. They did not have that good, knowing relationship. They kept wanting to do things their way. For not knowing and having a relationship with the right things of Elohim, the righteousness of Elohim, and seeking to establish their own righteousness. Not righteousness meaning like doing it like through works, and the church will tell you this is all about them trying to do things through works. No, they had to do the works. That was the covenant. But they were starting to bend and twist it to their own way of doing it. And this is where they got into all kinds of trouble. Some of you have used this sentence. This sentence is trouble incarnate. Well, I'm sure he's okay with this. He knows my heart. That already means you're off trying to do your own righteousness. You're trying to bend and twist and justify something you want to do that's not exactly what he said you should do. Or justify not doing something he said to do because you don't want to do it. And that's what the Jews were doing. So he says, look, for not knowing or having a deep relationship with the righteousness of Elohim, they had information, not relationship. And seeking to establish their own righteousness, they did not subject themselves. That's the key. They didn't subject themselves to the righteousness of Elohim. For Messiah is the goal of the Torah unto righteousness to everyone who believes. Now, Messiah being the goal doesn't say, this is where Christianity really gets in trouble. The goal wasn't to get you to Messiah coming and revealing himself and dying and being resurrected. The goal was to become him. Okay, it says the Messiah is the goal of the Torah. The Torah's goal is to have you. How many times have I said this? What does Torah do? Torah observance, it blesses you, it keeps you safe, and it's the instrument, the vehicle that transforms you from what you are into the goal, into him. For the Messiah is the goal of the Torah, unto doing, so that you would do righteousness. What righteousness? The one that's in verse 3. Not some new thing. Verse 3 is talking about Torah observance in a relational way, subjecting yourselves to it. They mechanically did it without subjecting themselves. They were not relinquishing their sovereignty to him in the way that they did their stuff. He says, for Moses writes about the righteousness which is of Torah. The man who does these things shall live by them. Well, actually, he says it in a different way. He says, if you do these things, you shall live. So I think this could be a slight misquote here. But, because Moses is telling us, do these things and live. He says, I lay before you life and death, choose life. But the righteousness of belief speaks in this way. Do not say in your heart, who shall ascend into the heavens, that is to bring Messiah down, or who shall descend into the abyss, that is to bring Messiah up from the dead. But what does it say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of belief which we are proclaiming. Up, stop, time out, hold right here. Let's go and see what Moses actually said in Deuteronomy chapter 30. Okay? So go to Deuteronomy 30, another one that's not in my notes. Hold on. Because I didn't think I'd get this far to chapter 10. Okay, let's see where that is. And starting in verse 11. Okay, so we'll be there. Okay, so we're in Deuteronomy chapter 30. He goes, hold on, I may want to start somewhere earlier. Okay, so after that, they've been driven out from where they had been. Okay? I guess we're going to start in verse 1. Oh, we got some time. And it shall be, when all these words come upon you in verse 1, the blessing and the curse. Remember, we just had that in chapter 28 of Deuteronomy, is the blessing and the curse. Some of you don't remember that? I'm telling you. Chapter 28 is the blessing and the cursing. So here we are now in chapter 30. He says, and when all of this has come upon you, and all these words come upon you, the blessing and the curse, which I've set before you, and you shall bring them back to your heart among all the Gentiles where Yahweh your Elohim has driven you, and shall turn back. Wait a minute, is this not talking about Paul's time? Okay, this is prophetically referring to what Paul's dealing with. So we know that Paul is quoting Moses in chapter 30, is dealing with exactly what Deuteronomy is talking about, what Moses is talking about. He says, and when you turn back, when he's bringing you back, and you shall turn back to Yahweh your Elohim and obey his voice. That is covenantal, above all, key phrase, covenantal phrase. Exodus 19, if you agree to obey my voice, I will take you as my people. So when we turn around and start obeying his voice. So what did he say? He said the Torah, he said the commandments. According to all that I command you today, with all your heart being and all your children, you and your children, then Yahweh your Elohim shall turn back your captivity and shall have compassion on you, because he has compassion on whom he chooses, and shall turn back and gather you from all the peoples where Yahweh scattered you. If any of you are driven out to the farthest parts under the heavens, from there Yahweh your Elohim shall gather you, and from there he does take you. And Yahweh your Elohim shall bring you to the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he shall do good to you and increase you more than your fathers. And Yahweh your Elohim shall circumcise your heart. For all of those who don't believe circumcision of heart is an Old Testament concept. And the heart of your seed, to love Yahweh your Elohim with your heart and with your being, so that you might live. See, there's the whole point, is that you shall have life. And Yahweh your Elohim shall put all these curses on your enemies and those who hate you, who persecuted you. And you shall turn back and obey the voice of Yahweh and do all his commands which I commanded you. In case you weren't clear, you're going to at that time obey his voice and do all the commandments that Moses taught. Not that we're done away with and nailed to the cross and all this other nonsense. You're going to do what Moses taught. Okay? He says, for this command, I'm sorry, I lost where I was. Okay, verse 9. And Yahweh your Elohim shall make you have excess in all your works of your hands, and the fruit of your body, and the fruit of your livestock, and the fruit of the ground for good. For Yahweh turns back to rejoice over you for good, as he rejoiced over your fathers, if you obey the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, to guard his commands and his laws, which are written in this book of the Torah, if you turn back to Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being. Is this confusing? Only by the fact that the people who are reading Romans are not connecting when he says he's quoting Moses, to go back and see what Moses was talking about. Moses was talking about Torah observance. But now let's see where it goes. He says, verse 11, for this command which I'm commanding you today is not too hard for you, nor far off. Let's see what he says here. And we're going to kind of go back and forth to Romans. Okay? So he says, Well, actually, it's a little bit further down. Okay, so it's not too far for you. It's not too hard for you. It's not far off. It is not in the heavens to say, who shall ascend to the heavens for us and bring it to us, nor cause us to hear it so that we do it. Nor is it beyond the sea to say, who shall bring it over from the sea for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it so that we do it. For the word is very near you, in your mouth and your heart to do it. Now, hold on. Now, Paul quotes this differently. He says, do not say in your heart, who shall ascend to the heavens? That's the same. That is to bring Messiah down. Oh, because Messiah is the walking, talking, living Torah. He's the Word made flesh, the Torah made flesh. Because it's very clear that Moses says, he says, who's going to ascend into the heavens for us to bring it to us? What's the it? Well, he's talking about in verse 10, the book of the Torah, the laws, etc., that they may have lost contact with. And here he's referring to, Paul is calling that Messiah. And who shall descend into the abyss? That is to bring Messiah up from the dead. Well, what does it say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of belief. He's calling what Moses is talking about the word of belief. Oh, isn't that different than what you heard on Sunday? He's calling what Moses said the word of belief. The problem is his Jewish brothers were not keeping it that way. He says, see, we're back in Deuteronomy, I set before you today life and good, death and evil, and that I am commanding you today to love Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his ways, to guard his commands, his laws, his right rulings, and you shall live and increase, and Yahweh your Elohim shall bless you in the land in which you go to possess. But if your heart turns away, and you do not obey, I shall be drawn away and shall bow down to other mighty ones and serve them. I have declared to you that I will take away the Torah because it's the problem and give you Messiah, and then you won't have these issues anymore. Oh, see, I was wrong, I guess. But if your heart turns away and you do not obey and shall be drawn away and bow down to other mighty ones, I have declared to you today that you shall certainly perish. And you shall not prolong your days in the land which you are passing over the Jordan to enter and possess. I have called the heavens and earth as witnesses against you. Today against you I have set before you life and death, the blessing and the curse. Therefore choose life, so that you live, both you and your seed, to love Yahweh your Elohim, to obey his voice, to cling to him. For he is your life and the length of your days, to dwell in the land which Yahweh swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give them. Paul is not taking away from or doing it. He did take, metaphorically, he changed the wording a little bit, but it says the same thing. We should know that when he says to bring Messiah down, that he's referring to the Torah, to bring that in to our system, to bring it in. He says, but what does it say? The word is near you, back in Romans 10:8. In your mouth and in your heart, that is the word of belief which we are proclaiming, that if you confess with your mouth the Master Yeshua and believe in your heart that Elohim has raised him from the dead, you shall be saved. In the context of verse 6, do not say in your heart, who shall ascend into the heavens to bring Messiah down, or who shall descend in the abyss, that is to bring the Messiah up. He's quoting Moses. He's saying, look, the Torah is what we're talking about here in the context of Messiah. So now let's say it differently. That if you confess with your mouth, verse 9, that the Master Yeshua, the walking, talking, living Torah, if you confess that with your mouth and believe in your heart that Elohim raised him from the dead, you shall be delivered. For with the heart one believes unto righteousness. What is righteousness? Doing the Torah, doing what's right according to Elohim. That is the definition of righteousness. He says, with the heart one believes unto righteousness, and one confesses with the mouth, and so is delivered. Of course, unless you don't keep doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're going to only be delivered at that moment, but not ultimately delivered. Because the scripture says, whoever puts his trust in him shall not be put to shame. But that's the key. Are you putting your trust in him? That was the whole covenant in Exodus 19. If you will trust to obey my voice in everything I say, I will take care of everything else. Do you put your trust in him? If you do, you will not be put to shame. He says, because there is no distinction. Now he's trying to say this. It doesn't matter what you were born if you come into this. There's no distinction between the Jew and the Greek, for the same master of all is rich to all those who are calling upon him. For everyone who calls upon his authority, the authority in the name of Yahweh, shall be delivered. But you can't call upon that authority unless you're walking this out. You know, in John 14, Yeshua pretty much says that straight out. Okay, in John 14, I'm just going to quote that real quick and then we'll end. He says, if you love me, verse 15, and guard my commandments, then I shall ask of the Father. Why do we ask if we don't see that authority there? He says, you can't call upon a name. Oh, I'm sorry. He says, verse 13, and whatever you ask in my name I shall do in order that the Father might be esteemed. So whatever you ask in my authority, and if you ask whatever in my name I shall do it, if you love me and guard my commands. Right? The authority in the name that Romans is talking about is the same thing Yeshua says here. If you go ahead and do things in my name and you do all this other stuff, I will do them if you're loving me and guarding my commands. If you're not, then I'm not. Is that clear for everyone? Okay? All right. Let's see if I can get this in quick. Go back to Romans. How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him in whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without one proclaiming? And how shall they proclaim if they are not sent? As has been written, how pleasant are the feet of those who bring the good news of peace, who bring the good news of the good. However, not all obeyed the good news. For Isaiah said, wait a minute, the good news was going on in Isaiah's time. Oh, so this isn't just a New Testament thing. Isaiah says, Yahweh, who has believed our report. What report? That they need to be keeping the Torah and trusting Yahweh. So that Isaiah was dealing with the people that were not trusting their Creator. So then belief comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Elohim. Oh boy, do Christian churches love to quote that verse, but they have no idea what they're quoting. And that's the problem. And we'll continue with this next week. Ended in verse 17. So what's 10:17? Okay, let's go ahead and pray. Father, we come before you. And wow, there's a whole lot of stuff going on here, and we're just so blessed to have this written word that you allowed us to have so we can seek you and understand you and have your instructions, your information in written form for us to study and piece together as you reveal yourself to us. And Father, please, we ask that you would strengthen us and help us to truly embrace and understand what the book is actually saying about you. What is Paul really saying? What was Isaiah saying? What was Moses saying? All the places. What was John saying? And what did Yeshua say in Matthew? How does that all piece together as we put this puzzle together? And so, Father, please, give us the strength to have the patience, the endurance to keep walking this forward and give you enough time as we stick it out for you to keep revealing and revealing for us the understanding that we need to give us that peace and shalom, that your way is the way and that your way is the path to the kingdom, to eternal life, that we need to trust you with full emunah, with full belief, faith, and trust that you will do what you said you will do. And we will have what you promise us to have if we do our part. Father, we thank you and we praise you and we're humbled by all of this. And we're so excited about having relationship and not just information. Father, continue to finish the work in us as we lay ourselves before you in full faith and emunah. Father, we thank you and give you praise and glory and honor in the name above all names as we ask all things in his name, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. 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 All right. We're getting closer to finishing Romans. Now, of course, there are still some of you that now you're bored, and yeah, I bored you again today, and you didn't learn anything. And all right, so this is called the afterburn. And so if you have comments or questions, you can go ahead and raise your hand here. And Owen's going to come around with the mic. If you're on the live stream, Rob, and Rob's going to take care of the live stream. And we'll try to get the comments and questions, in as many as we can. Okay, I know we covered a lot today. Okay, and we'll begin with Candace. Candace, go ahead.
Rabbi, I like this teaching very much because for many years I've gone around thinking the thought, why did Yahweh choose me? I mean, my sister has been walking with him she's a Christian. In her own way, she's been walking with him the best that she knew how. And she's been an inspiration to me. But Yahweh called me on this path, and I just kept questioning. And I think in ways I was kind of arguing with him and without realizing that's what I was doing. But today I realize I just need to thank him for choosing me and letting me walk this walk. So,
Amen. Amen. Exactly. Okay? That's exactly the point to get out of this, is that say thank you, not say why didn't you, why now, why didn't you do it early, why? Just say thank you. Because he could have left you where you were. Okay? But he poked you, disturbed your peace, and brought you out of all that mess. Who's next? Okay, live stream. Either I was very thorough or a lot of people are just sitting there like deer in the headlights stunned. Okay.
Deer in the headlights stunned.
Okay, there you go. I was a little strong today, I guess. All right, Rob, what do we got?
Only got one so far from Olivia and Janet Hoffman.
I could have guessed. If you told me it was only one. Hi, Janet. Okay, go ahead.
Chapter 9, verse 28. Would you please elaborate on this verse? Thank you.
No. Okay, next question. Okay, what is it? Romans 9:28? For he is bringing a matter to an end and is cutting it short in righteousness, because Yahweh shall cut short a matter on the earth. Okay, yeah, I didn't kind of get into that yet. In Romans 11 and other places, and then also in Ephesians we talk about it. He's bringing an end to a place and a time where there was this enmity that was going on between the Jew and the Gentile. He was trying to make the one new man. We could also look at it from the bigger picture that at some point in the end times, he's bringing this whole era to an end, and we'll cut that short. Because remember, he says that if he doesn't cut it short, all flesh would be destroyed, and none would be saved alive. All right? So we have both of those things going on. And actually, I probably should look over here. So we have both of those things going on, Janet. Okay. I always look over there. When we get our new place set up, we need to have the live stream guys right behind the camera, so I'll look this way. I always feel compelled to look at Rob because he's asking the question. But go ahead.
Okay, from Angelic Ewan says, how do we know what his voice sounds like, especially because in mainstream Christianity it's presented that the Holy Spirit is his voice?
Okay, look, there are all kinds of teachings out there throughout mainstream Christianity. One of them is called, knowing the Father's voice or these kind of things. Look, find yourself an anointed, appointed, and get under that leadership. What you think Yahweh's saying to you, run it by that leadership. And then you'll learn to recognize his voice. You'll also learn to recognize his voice if you really know the word. If you have a relationship with the word, you'll recognize when the voice is in line with that and when it's not. Because remember, I've talked about this all the time. All of us are crazy. We all have at least 3 voices in our head. At least 3. You've got your own voice. You got Hasatan's voice, the enemy's voice, right? And you've got that small, still voice, the still, quiet voice of the Ruach, of the Spirit. And so, how do you know which one's which? All of them are trying to pretend they're the same voice. Okay? There used to be a show where it was like, well, the real so-and-so, please stand up, There was the whole line, right? And they had 3 people all claiming to be the same person. And the celebrities had to guess which one was the real person. But that's kind of what's going on in your head. You got 3 voices all trying to convince you they're his. You want what you want, so it's going to try to convince you that it's his voice that says you can have it. The enemy wants you to have what you want, especially if it's not what Yahweh said, so he's going to convince you. And then there's the voice of Yahweh waiting for the other 2 to be quiet. And so you're going to have a struggle with that until over time in practice you'll start to recognize the differences. And having somebody help you through that is going to make it a whole lot easier. Okay, any other questions?
From from Olivier Hoffman. Romans 8:26 through 27. Am I understanding correctly that the Spirit is Yeshua?
Romans 8. Right, because remember, now it's talking about the Spirit. And remember, at this point in Romans 8, which we should all agree comes after John 14 and comes after Yeshua is buried and resurrected, John 14 makes it clear that, well, we should go back and read that again. He says, if you love me and guard my commands, I shall ask the Father, and he shall give you a helper, another helper to stay with you forever, the Spirit of truth, whom the world is unable to receive because it does not see him or know him, but you know him, for he stays with you and shall be in you. He's saying, look, the world doesn't recognize that this thing is here already. It's me. But he stays with you and shall be in you. So he's already with you, but the world doesn't recognize me as who I am. He says, I shall not leave you orphans. I am coming to you. There's lots of other places where it talks about that same idea. We talk about this in the Ruach teaching, in the Understanding the Ruach teaching. So he's saying, look, he says, he who searches the hearts, the Father knows what the mind of the Spirit is because he makes intercession, and we know that all matters work together for the good. And he goes, because those who I guess we start in verse 26. And in the same way, the Spirit does help us in our weaknesses. So who's the helper? Yeshua. So we already have the hint, the Spirit that's helping us, Yeshua. And it says that the Father knows the mind of the Spirit. He says, my Father and I, we think alike. He says, everything I say, everything I do is what he says I should think and do. And so we have that connection there. So he's referring to Yeshua in you. But that's hard to explain to people when they're trying to embrace a Messiah who just died in their lifetime and then was resurrected. Then none of these people were there to see it. They weren't living near when it happened, where it was. They're trying to, hopefully believe Paul and trust Paul's words because he's bringing this word or this message to them where they are down in Rome. Yeshua didn't die in Rome. And so they weren't there for these events. Paul wasn't either. But he's bringing this witness to them. And so he's having a hard enough time getting them to connect that up than to say in a much more bizarre way, you already think I'm crazy, Paul's thinking, but to say that this is Messiah who's in you, who's doing these things. Does that make sense to you now? Does it make more sense to everyone? Okay. Go back and listen to the Understanding the Ruach teaching. All right? And the Father-Son teaching. And kind of get those pieced together. All right, what's next?
Okay, from Olivia Janet Hoffman. Also, I guess it's says also the last verse, please, Rabbi, chapter 10, verse 17. We received so many wrong teachings from the churches. Please, can you elaborate on this? And then also from Marianne Gibson, it says, I'm having an issue with 1017. You said something different. My book says the word of Messiah.
Okay, so at the end it says, and so the belief comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Elohim or word of Messiah. I'm going to start next week. I'm going to be starting from verse 14 anyway, okay? Because I want to really get into more about those that are sent and anointed, appointed, and some of those things that he's talking about here. So I'm going to start back in verse 14 anyway, so that we kind of have that context, all right? And I may even start a little bit before that with this whole idea of who shall be saved. But that whole thing about who shall be saved is in the Are You Saved teaching. Okay? Yeah, but I'm going to go into this whole idea. How shall they call upon him in whom they have not believed? How shall they believe in him in whom they have not heard? Then he goes into and how shall they hear without one proclaiming? And then we get to verse 17, so then belief comes by hearing and hearing by the word, etc. So let me kind of flesh that out for you, whatever the word is. Let me get that more clear next time, okay? By the way, I'll give you a little hint right here. Belief comes by hearing and hearing by the word of Elohim. If we make that a capital W, the word of Elohim opens your ears. Yeshua is the word, and so he helps you with the hearing. I just got that when I was saying it, so let me just write that down. I'm going to underline it so I know, and I'm going to make that W capital. Okay, there. Okay? So maybe that's a piece of it. But let's just see what the Ruach gives me to say next week when we'll start there. Okay, what else? We got to have a lot more because the Rebbetzin's in the room, and we always go short when she's in the room. So when she's with the children and they're driving her crazy, we go long, but when she's in here, we go short. Happens every time. Are we done?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, I got from Caramel Woman. Romans 9:33 says, "Is God allowing the confusion or warning us of it?"
Okay, this whole thing in verse 33, I get to name another teaching. What teaching do I get to name? It's talking about a rock. Yeshua the rock. Okay? So you might want to go back and listen to that teaching, Yeshua the rock. Look, he's talking about how Yeshua is a stone of stumbling for both houses, for both parts. Okay? The Jew and the Gentile both have a problem with Yeshua and not understanding him. The Jew doesn't understand Yeshua as Messiah in the fullness of comprehension of that, and the Gentile doesn't understand him as the walking, talking Torah. Okay? So it causes people to stumble. They're not understanding. Okay, but I explained that in much more detail in Yeshua the Rock, I believe. I haven't done that teaching in a very long time, so I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure it's covered in that teaching. It was? Okay. You're just saying it's been a long time. Oh, it was a good one. Okay, thank you. All right. What else we got?
Okay, this is from Leanne. She's asking a question on John 14. She's going through the teaching on the doctrine of grace, but she has a question. She's still confused. It says, please clarify, if Yahweh chooses whom he will have mercy upon, then it would seem our works are not merited favor. Or does Messiah clarify that in John 14?
Read it to me one more time.
Okay. If Yahweh chooses whom he will have mercy upon, then it would seem our works are not merited favor. Or does Messiah clarify that in John 14?
Well, I'm not so sure how Messiah clarifies it. It doesn't clarify it in John 14, but remember what I said here in this teaching today, though, in Romans. Okay, he has compassion or mercy on those who he has it on, or gives favor to those because he knows we will merit the favor. He knows in advance what we will do when he calls us. He knows the end from the beginning. And so he called you knowing you would walk this out, knowing you could run the race, knowing you could, not that you would, but that you could complete it. Because not everybody chooses after they're called to actually walk this all out. But he knew you could do it. Does that make sense, hopefully, to Leanne? I hope it does. Okay? It's hard for us to deal with the ideas and concepts related to being outside of time. Okay, where Yahweh understands and knows beforehand what you'll do. I mean, he can see all of it play out in advance. He knows if I do this little ripple and thing, this is what will happen. This is how that can play out. This is what that person will do. He knew. That's why he went and selected David HaMelech. He knew what David would do. That's why he picked everybody along the line. He knew what they would do. He picked Moses. He knew what he would do. He picked Jacob over Esau because he knew what he would do. Because time is a linear thing for us, not so with Yahweh. That's really hard for us to wrap our brains around. Remember the metaphor, amoeba, human being, you know? We're like an amoeba trying to understand a human being. It's like a human being trying to understand what Yahweh does. Okay? Anybody else? I know Sarah Beth has her hand up, but let's see if there's anything else on the live stream. No? Okay, Owen, bring it over to Sarah Beth.
Thank you. Comment on this kind of subject. It does kind of have that whole like confusing wait what, but it reminded me so much of work, both past jobs and this one. Everybody's beating up on the boss. The boss does just random decisions for no reason. yada, yada, yada. The boss is always making weird decisions. But then you go into management and you see the boss, yeah, they're all not perfect, but they have a system for why they make the decisions they do. They see things differently than you do. They see everybody. They see people's potential. They're judging each person by what they see and every little thing they see, and they learn how to judge people. And they do a really good job, and virtually everything they do is planned and on purpose.
Yep.
If you would just know how they're seeing it, you could work with them and be promoted.
Amen. Amen. Look, even people that work here, who spend some time here, can see they start to see how I operate in that leadership position and how I have a sort of a more global picture, a zoomed out picture, and the things that I'm doing fit into some things that maybe you can't see yet or don't understand yet, but there's a reason for them. And that's where remember we talked about those who already can see it, right? Then if they can see it, they don't have an expectation because they already know, so what's there to expect? They just know what's going to happen. But we have an anticipation, expectation because we can't see it, but we have to trust. That's something that has to be done with husbands and fathers and leaders. Same thing with children, with mothers too. Can you trust the leadership, whatever that leadership is, that even though you can't see it, they can see it? Okay, where's the mic? Okay, Christina?
So I was hesitant to ask this question because I feel like I'm going to open a can of worms. But
Well, you need to because we got a lot of time to kill, so Rebbetzin doesn't feel like we're short.
Okay, well, this one's a doozy. Okay, so the verse is about he has favor who he wants to have favor on. In the Christian church, when I was there, they used those as scripture for the whole theology of predestination.
Right.
And so I'm kind of curious as to how that all plays into it. Yes, of course, I feel very fortunate that Yahweh, like Candace has expressed, that he called me out into the path that I'm on right now. But then I also think about all of the friends and family that I have and that all of us have, and it kind of makes me wonder about how that all plays into it at the same time. And then there's also the other side where there's a lot of people who will say, well, they'll take one of two approaches. They'll be like, oh, well, I'm the person that has been called out, and they'll kind of puff themselves up, and then they say, okay, well, those people are going to be burned up. Or they'll go to the other side of it, and they'll say, well, why do I want to serve a God who would do that? And so I don't even know if that's too much to go into right now.
Actually,
but I kind of want to.
Okay. Now, I want to say something, and don't get offended and don't get insulted. Okay. But I already explained everything you just asked. You just have to hear the teaching again.
Okay.
I explained all of that. It's not opening up anything. It's all in trying to wrap your brain around the fact that because he already knows what you will do, you've already made the choices. It's not because he's chosen you for burning and the other person for something else. You've already made the choices that end up in fire. He's already seen it play through. So the predestination thing is something Christianity hasn't understood. It's not that he predetermines and puts you on a path. He already knows what you do in the future. The time is not the thing. Okay? So he picks you knowing what you will do and leaves others alone knowing what they would do if he had picked them what they would do anyway.
Because time's not linear.
Because time's not linear to him, it's linear to us.
Okay.
Okay? It's not linear to him, it's linear to us. All right? He already knows the end. How does he know the end? He's already seen it play out. Okay? Because he's able to understand it and see it play out. So, great question. I understand where it's coming from. But because this is running upstream against all that stuff that you've been well churched in, you didn't receive it as clearly. Go back and listen to it a few times. It's all there. And listen to the afterburn.
Okay.
Okay? So you didn't open up anything. I actually fully addressed that in what I said.
I was trying very hard to process it all.
I understand. Some of these things just take a while because it's swimming upstream against something that had been beaten in for so long. Okay, give it to Christine from Christina. You're sitting in the Christine row.
Christina, everything that you were asking is exactly what I was thinking and wondering too, so I'm going to have to go back and listen to probably this entire teaching on Romans. So
Okay, but just that whole idea when I started off with that whole thing about him ordaining beforehand. Okay, and he actually explains it. He says because he knew what they would do. Because he ordained beforehand, knowing that he would call them, knowing that if he called them, they would do the righteous works so that they would get esteem. But he already you got to remember, we're not thinking linearly through this. We're thinking he called them because and the only reason this all works is because he ordained them to do it. They've been selected to do it. No, he called them knowing they would do it. That's a whole hard thing for us to wrap our brain around. Okay? He picked Jacob knowing Esau wouldn't go that way. All right? Not because Jacob didn't go that way because he picked him. He picked him because he knew he would go that way.
So he saw the potential?
He sees our potential. He knows what you're going to. He sees the end from the beginning. When he disturbed your peace, he knew exactly what you would do from that point until the kingdom. He's already seen all the way to the New Jerusalem and everything. He's already has all that. He's already seen it all play out. That's how when he says he knows the end from the beginning, it literally means he knows how things are going to end already. Not just in the big picture, in everybody's life. He knows your life. He's seen it all play out. And so he called you and picked you knowing, that's a big, the camera might not have been on it, but she was like, pow, that just blew my face up in my head, a bang. All right? But we have to wrap our brains around that different thing, okay? Jacob didn't do what he did, or David didn't do it because he was selected. He was selected because Yahweh knew what he would do. Moses was selected because he knew what he would do, okay? All of these things happened because he already knew how that would play out. This is why we went, instead of going to Reuben, who was first, it works all the way down to Joseph. And Joseph didn't even get the choice. He had it already go down to Ephraim and Manasseh. Because Yahweh wanted to make sure that the ones he knew that would do what he knew they would do. Okay? Even Judas, Yeshua said to him, you were selected to do this. Why? Not because he was cursed and he had no choice in it. Yahweh knew that he would do it. And so it was his job and his role to do. It wasn't like he had no choice. He was picked because he would make the choice. Yahweh knew the choice he would make. Somebody had to do it. And Yahweh already knew. By the way, Yahweh knew that before Yeshua came in the flesh. He actually knew it before the earth was created. Because as the Lamb was slain before the foundation of the earth, he understood all this stuff. You've heard me say this. Remember the story I told you? This is my story, right? This is my delusion. I believe before anything was created, in John 1:1, when it says the Word and the Father, that Yeshua came to the Father and said, hey, I'd like to create something, right? We've had this story. I haven't told it in a long time. Okay, I want to create something. And I believe that the Father said, because the Father, it doesn't say the Son does, but the Father knows the end from the beginning. And the Father said, well, Son, if you do that, these creatures you're going to make, these human beings are going to do this and do that and mess us all up. And for you to ultimately have what you want, which is to live forever with these guys, you're going to have to die for them and redeem them and all this other stuff. Are you willing to do that? That's being slain from before the foundation of the earth. And it says that the Father had to be willing to give his only begotten Son. And he says, and I've got to be willing to do that. I think that whole conversation happened before it all started. Because the Father could say, Son, yes, if you want to do this, and he laid it all out from this is what's going to happen. All this is exactly what's going to happen. Are you still wanting to go forward knowing this is going to happen? Now, does that make some more sense for everybody? And so, in that plan, he was going to come in the flesh. In that plan, he was going to get betrayed. In that plan, he was going to get scourged. In that plan, all that stuff was already there because the Father could see it play out. And he had to be willing to do that before they even started the project, knowing all that. Wow, right? And that's how all the verses fit together that we read, where it says that, he would be willing to give, his only begotten Son, and where it says that the Lamb was slain even before the foundation of the earth. All these things pieced together. Him knowing the end from the beginning. And so the thing with predestination is that he picked you knowing your destination. How's that? Pre you're doing it, he knew where you would go, where you were destined to be. If he gave you that eye-opening, ear-opening experience and opened your heart, he knew what you would do. So knowing that he pre-knew, he had pre-knowledge of your destination, he then knew when to call you. He knew what you would then do and what you would embrace and where you'd end up. Does that make sense? So it's not like we have no free will, which is what the predestination people would say. It's because he already knows the choices you'll make because of your free will that he has called you to do what you're going to do. I know that's kind of real hard to wrap the brain around fully. Okay? Where's the mic? Bring. Okay, so Christina and then the gentleman behind you.
Sorry, I'm kind of hogging the microphone. Okay, so the other thing that came into play with the whole idea behind predestination and understanding it from a biblical Torah perspective is that if he knows the beginning from the end and the end from the beginning, and he knows everything, then he knows what we're going to go through.
Yep.
That we're going to suffer.
Yep.
And then
hold on.
Go ahead.
What's the verse say? He says, I will not allow you to go through anything that you can't handle, because he knows. I also will not put you in anything that I don't provide a way of escape, because he knows. So we have verses that tell you exactly what you just said, that says he knows.
Precisely. And so, and not only that, but the thing that you were saying in the scripture where it says that basically that, and I'll probably screw it all up with the way I'm saying it, but that we'll go through all of the suffering that we go through because he will choose. Like when you said that the Jews went through all their suffering and he did it in the time that he wanted to and showed that so that his esteem could be made.
Yep.
And so in each of our lives, we'll be going through the same kind of suffering that Yeshua did, that the Jewish people did, that everyone in the Bible has, so that he will come in the moment that he wants, that he chooses to esteem us, to esteem himself. I misspoke. To esteem himself and bring glory
through
to
what he
himself.
does to us.
Through what he does to us.
And through us, yes.
Okay, well then it makes it a lot easier to deal with the suffering.
Yes. Okay, hand the mic to the gentleman behind you.
I'm a guest, but this is my first time here. But I just love what
Well,
you
introduce
said.
yourself first. What's your name?
Ken.
Ken.
Bishop.
Okay.
What you said, I truly agree with. But I wanted to just add as a highlight that if we in today, and we don't see ourselves written in the Bible or the Word, but we can trust to know that even though we may be talking to a friend or have, in my case, in days past, I didn't know that I was going to become anointed with the spirit of understanding until I was 60 some odd years old. If I had believed all my life that I wasn't chosen, I would have been wrong. So the good news is that we may all be predestined to have that choice. Some people should not talk themselves out of it. We should all think that we all have the opportunity to come to know the Word.
Amen. Okay, and that takes everybody to everybody's favorite teaching? The Millennium in the Kingdom, where it explains exactly what he just said, that everybody gets their chance and their opportunity. It's just at his discretion, okay? There is a plan for everyone, just like he said, so everybody should always have that hope, and we should have that hope for all of our family members, that they will get their opportunity, and how that all plays out is in the Millennium and Kingdom teaching, okay? Part 4. No, I'm kidding. Okay. No, it's in the earlier parts. Okay, Michelle?
I think this is so great because I totally agree that everyone's kind of called to esteem his name, Yahuwah, Yeshua, Hashemiach, Emmanuel, Ben Elohim. I think that we all have that ability. I think when he predestines to select someone for a specific task, like I have this art book and I found someone in our congregation who can republish it for me, and I saved those files a million years ago, gave them to the largest broadcasting company in 2012, and it's like my music, I copyright it and send it away, but I'll post it on Facebook, and if you take it, good for you. Anyway, but the point of this is he gives us stuff so that we can do stuff to esteem his name. I didn't realize that when I got that time travel dream and that art book and I put that art together, that it was really just to figure out his real name. Because when I put the title on the cover of a book, I used that wrong, phony, fake name. And then I realized it was all so that I can esteem his name. It was for him. It was not really for me, but only for me to be the vessel to esteem his name, to figure out his name, and to share with him everybody that I knew via the internet, because, that's how we communicate with the masses these days as an individual, the real name of the Messiah, because there's so much counterfeit realities going on that I think at a specific time, the watchmen must tell the truth. How can they be held accountable if people are not telling them the real name that they should call on to escape? If you don't have the real name, how are you going to escape? He said, trust in my name alone. Trust in my name alone, you shall be saved.
Hold on. Let me interrupt you. Okay. Have you listened?
Yeshua.
Have you?
Emmanuel is his real name. Some people say Yahusha. I like that one too. Ancient Paleo Hebrew is great. Here's your mic back.
Okay. Have you listened to the No Other Name teaching yet? Okay, you need to go listen to that teaching, because it's not just about saying the name correctly, okay? I know that's a big thing for you. I know that's very important for you. But anybody can say the name correctly, and it does them no good if they don't understand what the name stands for. Michelle, we could talk about it afterwards. That doesn't value, there's no value in that if you don't understand the rest of it, okay? You'll need to go, listen, you're going to have to trust me. Okay? But knowing his name has no value beyond just knowing his name. You have to know more. Okay? Go listen to the teaching, No Other Name. All right? And then you'll understand. And I think didn't we give you the CDs for that already? If we didn't, we can give them to you today. All right? But there are lots of Christians out there using his name. Just because they know his name, it doesn't do anything. There's no magic in knowing the name. Okay? But you have to understand the whole point about authority, which is what the word name is about. And you'll have to go back and listen to that teaching. Okay? Not a problem. You're excited. I'm glad you're excited. And I'm glad that you figured out what his name isn't. That's important too. But you have to get the rest of the picture. Okay? All right. Where's the mic? Okay. Are we done on live stream, or did you get any more? No, we're good? All right. Well, let's go ahead and get the mic to Rob. He's going to close us. To get the children. Michael, can you just get the children in there? And then whoever's got the walkie-talkie, get them from upstairs. Okay, so we're going to get the children to come down. And then we're going to close in prayer. Rob Wyatt's going to lead us in the closing prayer when that happens. In the meantime, for those of you that are here, that are guests, after we shut everything down here, we're going to go ahead and have our own Egger Fellowship meal. Also, those of you that want counseling, we'll do some counseling after services. By the way, I'm thinking that we're going to need, I know, Marty, this is not going to make you happy, but I think we're going to need to, in the future, at some point, make the teachings that are available by audio somehow. We need to put the afterburns with them, because I think that they're becoming so critical for people to understand the teaching if they understand the afterburn. I know in the videos it's okay that we have them separate and people need to know that they need to do that. But I think when we send out the CDs and stuff, somehow we're going to have to start figuring out a way to make an extra disc for the afterburn or something. I don't know. Because I'm finding that these afterburns are where we really clarify some things that I don't really get to say necessarily in the teaching. So I don't know what to do with that. We'll brainstorm it and we'll figure it out. Anybody agree with that? Yes. Okay. All right. Well, Sarah Beth does at least. Okay. So and some of the rest of you had hands up too, but she was loud. All right. Okay, the Gadol class is in here. We're waiting on the children to come down from upstairs. And then we're going to go ahead and close. A reminder to everyone again that tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, we'll be here and live on the YouTube for the general session. And so Hopefully we have our youth team and whoever's going to help us with the cameras and everything all set to be here tomorrow night to do the cameras and the broadcast. Okay. Did we get the emails out for the leadership meeting? Okay. Just want to make sure that we got one to Richard Cortez. We got him on there. Okay. Separately. Okay. All right. We're just still waiting on the upstairs people to come down, the young children. Hopefully they're headed on their way. We walkie-talkied them this time, but yeah, they used to be going longer, and they're like thinking they've got a lot more time, usually another 30 minutes. See, all you guests that are here today, you got off easy. I don't normally finish till 5. Usually get an hour and a half sermon followed by an hour and a half sermon or afterburn. Okay, here come the Katan B. Oh, Katan A. B is still cleaning up. Oh, look at all how we got so many Katan A's today. Awesome. Okay, so the nursing moms are coming. That's good. Usually they're last, so that's good. Caleb, you don't look like a nursing mom. Hey, Laura Beth. Up here. She's eating. She's all occupied. Okay, here comes the Bet class. All right. Is that everybody? All right, if you'll all rise, we'll close in prayer. After the closing prayer, those of you that want to can come up here, and we're going to wave to everybody out there on the live stream. All right, the closing prayer will be led by Rob Wyatt.
All right. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this awesome teaching by our teacher, our rabbi. Just the word that was brought today, the clarifying of the things that we have just learned, probably just learned wrong, and that we want to unlearn and get back on to your word and your truth, Father. Father, watch over each and every one, everybody that's not here today that can't be due to sickness, travel, and those that are here, just bless them as they go out today at the end, after service. And just thank you for this another Shabbat with our family. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen, amen. All right, anybody wants to come up and get on the camera, wave Shabbat Shalom and all that kind of good stuff? I know my son is watching. He's over in North Carolina. Hey, Stephen. There's a space for you right here. I'm missing you. I'll put your sister in it for right now. Here we go. All right. Michelle, you're going to be blocking all these people behind you. Can you take Yehoshaphat around or just leave him in the front? You're going to be blocking all these people behind you. Well, all right, let me know when we got everybody on. All right, does everybody fit in the screen? Austin, we all in? All right, here we go. On 3. 1, 2, 3.